6 public hearings on, so if any of the applicants are requesting a continuance, let us know first before we get started. In the interim, first of all, our first matter on the agenda is the approval of the July 21st, 2014 minutes. Any of the planning board members have any comments on those or approval?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the planning board minutes of July 21st, 2014.
Motion's made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, chair votes yes. Minutes approved. The next matter we have is a special permit for 491, 493 Concord Street. That was before us for a public hearing 2 weeks ago, and it was continued to tonight's meeting. We did receive a letter from the applicant requesting that the matter be withdrawn without prejudice. Any of the board members have any questions on that? Or do you want to allow them to withdraw?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to allow the petitioner to withdraw the application without prejudice.
I'll second that.
Sure. Go ahead.
Are they just pulling out, or are they?
What they'd have to do, they have to come back and refile. If it's without prejudice,
They gotta refile,
yeah,
yeah.
the time frame wouldn't hit them. If we said no, they have to wait 2 years.
All right, I'll second the motion.
Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That matter's been withdrawn. Chair votes yes. Okay. The next matter, we have a rezone petition, 177 Adams Street. A public hearing will be held to hear all interested persons relative to the proposed zoning amendment to extend the urban mixed-use zone district to include the parcel located at the above address, which currently lies in the urban multifamily zoning district. We did receive a letter from legal department and also a letter from the city manager indicating that this matter is in accordance with the acre urban revitalization and development plan, and they're requesting that Adams Street, which is city-owned, be changed from urban multifamily to urban mixed-use zone. The city owns the Adams Street parcel and is relatively small, contains 2,733 square feet of land, and is proposed to be used for part of redevelopment of the mixed-use building on 214 Broadway. The parcel currently vacant and is proposed for use for parking for commercial and residential users, as well as necessary commercial activities, including placement of a trash receptacle. The proposed zoning change will facilitate the sale of the city-owned property in furtherance of the acre plan vision and will maintain desirable uses on the site that complement the neighborhood character. The UMU zone designated will foster the continuous operation and success of the business and residential property. The law department has prepared the necessary zoning amendment. This matter was referred to us after going to the city council, and this is signed and sent to us by city manager Kevin Murphy. Is anyone here to speak in regards to the zoning change?
Chairman, members of the planning board, my name is Craig Thomas. I'm the urban renewal project manager here in the city of Lowell. I prepared a relatively brief presentation to discuss 177 Adams Street. As the chairman mentioned, this is part of a process to sell a small piece of city-owned land to an abutter in the urban renewal district. So you see here on the plan where the red dot is in this small paved area, this is 177 Adams Street. It's the area behind a building here known by many addresses, but typically known by 204 Broadway, which is the Olympus Bakery and an attached residential structure. If we go on to the next slide, what you'll see is, and again, I apologize to anyone in the audience that this is a little hard to see, but for the planning board members, you'll see that the building is built more or less to the lot lines, and that the city of Lowell owned parcel here is really the rear parcel that, as you see it, is currently used for parking and dumpster storage, necessary functions as a part of a mixed-use building. Now, it's important in considering this rezone petition to think about the reason that we create urban renewal areas. We designate them in the city of Lowell and across the state, and the ways in which we use them. These are designated in areas where private investment does not support normal real estate functions in the private market. And there are a wide variety of reasons that occurs. We have to make a showing to the state. Any municipality that wishes to create an urban renewal area has to show the state a comprehensive list of reasons that contribute to a private real estate market that is not functioning. Two of the big ones that are often cited as impediments to a healthy private real estate market are diversity of parcel ownerships and irregular parcel sizes, parcels that don't meet the demands of modern businesses, modern residential users. You'll also note in the acre plan, we've proposed in this area to have a rehab structure to maintain the existing mixed-use building. This is also a little bit hard to see if you're farther away, but again, the acre plan has proposed that this will remain a mixed-use building with a business that operates as well as residential units that operate that continue.
Could you point it out on this map?
Yes. It is, where's my pointer? It's this right here.
Okay.
And you'll see here, there's additional housing proposed behind. If we go, well, no, I won't go back, but I can try and show you, if you want to see how the final plan relates to what we have on the ground here. There's the existing building that's proposed to be reused in its current form as a mixed-use commercial residential structure with parking to support those uses, as well as housing behind. And the city also owns additional parcels behind 177 Adams that will be sold at some point under the appropriate market conditions for housing development. So you see the current zoning here. We have the 204 Broadway structure here, which is zoned the UMU, and the line actually runs directly between the parcels. Again, I brought up the general concept of urban renewal areas in Massachusetts to help explain why we've pursued this disposition, again, in urban renewal areas where it supports the plan and where the city finds it to be in the best interests of the long-term viability of a site. We can work directly with the property owner as opposed to going out to RFP. In this case, we've been working directly with the owner of 204 Broadway here to sell this piece of land to complete this use, this mix of uses as a long-term viable use here. One of the impediments to that, though, is the existing zoning of the UMF, of UMF for 177 Adams Street, which makes it such that the commercial parts of 204 Broadway, anything related to the business there, cannot actually use this if we sell it to them. So in discussions as a part of this sale, the city is committed, if the planning board approves of the concept, to change the zoning to facilitate this sale and the continued redevelopment of this area. So the city of Lowell's proposal is to change the zoning of 177 Adams Street from UMF to UMU. This change supports an existing building and residential structure as part of a mixed-use site at 204 Broadway. This change creates a parcel that a combined parcel with 204 Broadway and 177 Adams, the city site, that is more supportive of long-term investment and can be reasonably reused by the private market after this. Again, if you're looking at two separate parcels where ownership is split in a way that's uncommon for a mixed-use structure with no parking of its own, no dumpster and utility access, it creates certain private market challenges, and we're looking to overcome those and create a site that both produces income from the city through a sale and also enhances the long-term viability of those sites. So, questions?
Thank you. Does anybody want to speak in favor of the zoning change? Anyone in favor? In favor? In favor? Anyone in opposition to the zoning change? Opposition? 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 Any board members have any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Is this going to require an amendment to the urban renewal plan?
No, again, the urban renewal plan always envisioned this parking lot being a part of the 204 Broadway parcel. I reviewed it with our law department because initially what the plan actually proposed was that the city would acquire both lots and sell them together. Mm-hmm. The reason for that was at the time the plan was approved, 204 Broadway had, I guess, an explosion or a serious fire relative to the commercial business, and then it was unclear if the owner would be able to continue with it. But actually, after the plan was approved, the owners who have been there for some time were able to rehab their property and move forward, continuing with a business in the city, as well as make as market rate residential units that were different than that plan very slightly, but the city took ownership through tax title of, through a previous taking, the city took ownership of 177 Adams Street. And after review on the very technical issue, I worked with the law department to determine that this is in support of the plan, because ultimately what the plan proposed is a functioning, viable structure at 204 Broadway that was a mixed use of commercial and residential. So even though in this case, actually, the city has less involvement than we originally proposed, which is very nice for us.
Okay, so that the map I asked you to point it out on earlier, that didn't show this parcel as housing?
No, it showed it simply as rehab. Again, the concept for the parcel was to maintain it as a mixed-use parcel within the plan. And being within the proposed actions in the plan, that's what allows us, again, to use the power to sell directly to an abutter. If we were proposing to do something like that that was not a proposed use or outcome in the plan, we would have to go through a plan change and have a public debate with the city council about whether or not that was advantageous for the city.
Okay.
Any other board members have any questions? Okay, what's the recommendation of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend the adopted proposed zoning amendment, noting that it supports the goals and objectives of the Acre Urban Revitalization and Development Plan.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. So the matter will be, Craig, do they have a public hearing date set for the city council?
Yes, it's actually before the city council next Tuesday, September 9th.
Okay, so this matter will go before the city council. We're only recommending boarding, and it'll be up to the city council to vote on this matter next week. Okay, thank you very
Thank you
much.
for your careful consideration,
Thank you.
members.
Next public hearing we have on the agenda is a special permit for 246.1 Market Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested parties relative to an application by Boot Mill seeking special permit approval for a redevelopment located at the above address. The proposal consists of redeveloping the current vacant building into 13 residential units. 14 parking spaces shall be provided on the ground floor of the building. The proposed project is located in the downtown mixed-use DMU zoning district and within the artist overlay district that requires special permit approval from the planning board under section 8.1 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, representing the developer. If I could, Mr. Chairman, I have some
Sure.
handouts.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor.
For the record, I'm representing Thomas Monahan, who will be the developer on the project, and with me tonight is the project supervisor, John DeAngelis, that can answer any questions. As the notice stated, we are seeking a special permit pursuant to section 8.1.2 to develop a vacant mill building presently owned by Boot Mills into 13 residential units with 14 parking spaces. I think the notice might be wrong. 12 of them are inside, Mr. Chairman, and 2 are located out front. The building is located in a DMU zone, downtown mixed-use district, and also within the artist overlay district and the downtown historic district. It was originally part of the Bigelow Hartford Carpet Company, which operated there for many years. The original building consisted of 3 stories, and I've given you a cross-section in there of the original building so you can see what I'm talking about. There was the bottom floor, and then there was a large space which included all the turbines that were used for that mill complex, and then there were two stories above. So I thought that could explain to you the makeup of the building so you can understand what we're trying to do. Those of you who have visited the site, you can see that it's in a pretty bad situation, presently vacant, and it's really in need of rehabilitation. It is within the boundaries of the downtown historic district, and all renovations to the outside and facade of the building are subject to the approval by the Lowell Historic Board. We're here tonight just to get the right to do the 13 units. Representatives of the developer have already met with Mr. Stowell of the Historic Board and with Chuck Parrott of the Historic Board to discuss the proposed project. Mr. DeAngelis can also tell you about his meetings with Mr. Parrott pertaining to the Cole Pocket building, which is located next door, which I think a lot of the residents in the area are quite concerned about. So anything, if this is approved by you people tonight, then of course we're subject to it, you'd condition it subject to a Historic Board approval of the project. Mr. Monahan unfortunately could not be here tonight. but a little bit of a history of his background. He's been in the development business for more than 30 years, primarily in the southern New Hampshire area. One of his most recent projects is the development of the Outlet Mall in Merrimack. He is also presently doing a complete renovation of the building at 24 Merrimack Street, which is presently under construction as part of the downtown revitalization. So he has quite a history in the construction business. We want to develop the building in a manner consistent with the surrounding development on Canal Place 1, Canal Place 3, and other renovated buildings within the downtown neighborhood, which will enhance the whole character of the neighborhood. Also, this will satisfy the goals of the Lowell Master Plan for the reuse of vacant historic properties to meet new and updated housing market, and that's under section 4.15. The proposed plan is to remove the equipment presently located on that bottom portion of the building, and the basement floor would become a parking garage for 12 motor vehicles, along with an area for roll-out trash containers. Once that is done, then we build a second floor, which we'll have to put a new ceiling in, which we propose to put in 3 units. Then another ceiling for the third floor, which we're proposing 4 units. And because of the ceiling height of the 4th floor, we're also proposing some mezzanine portions of those units on the 3rd floor. I've given you a new plan of the units that you have, that shows these mezzanine areas, but that's what we'd like to do. Both the existing 4th and 5th floors will each have 3 residential units. A new elevator will also be installed in the rear of the building, which will be used to access the units. And I know there was some concern by one of the Canal Place buildings about the use of the freight elevator, but we're going to put in our own elevator, which we will use. As to staff comments, Historic Board approval have always stated that we've met with them, and any approval would be subject to that. Handicap spaces, we've redone the plan to show that handicap space now conforms with the requirements. Parking spaces, we put the dimensions into those parking spaces, and they all conform to zoning. Right-of-way, I've enclosed a copy of a right-of-way agreement. I think it was in 1959 it was signed, along with a plan that went along with it. It shows the right-of-way in from Market Street of all these mill projects. And I think based on the narrative attached to my application and what we presented tonight, that we have filled the requirements for a special permit for this conversion, and I'd ask that you vote favorably. We're here to answer any questions. Do you want to speak, John? If you have any questions for John DeAngelis, he's here too. So, but that's basically what we propose to do.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Anyone want to speak in favor of the project? You state your name and address for record, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Scott Erickson. I'm from the law firm of Perkins and Ansel. We represent Canal Place 1 condominium. I had faxed over to the planning department our letter of concern. I stood up when you asked if we are in favor. I think that generally speaking, the Canal Place condominium 1 is in favor of the proper redevelopment of this area. As my brother, Mr. Flood, said, we think that the area is in desperate need of work. Indeed, many of our concerns are how to address the coal pocket building. As this board may be aware, there is presently, for lack of a better word, staging in place to prevent, falling debris from being a problem to vehicular and pedestrian traffic. If I may, I would like to pass these out. I have copies.
Absolutely, Council. Yeah. Sure.
So this is
This the handout that we got today from staff?
it is, yes.
Okay. Okay, we just got it tonight, Councilor, thank you.
certainly.
Yeah, okay. It's always good to have it.
Generally speaking, our concerns were primarily access. The Canal Place 1 condominium immediately abuts, has an adjoining wall with the proposed Boot Mills development site. Mr. Flood indicated that they don't intend to use the freight elevator. That was actually one of our concerns, was controlling access, unauthorized access to the condominium for security residents. There is also a fire stairwell along that wall, and we are curious as to whether there are any plans, maybe Mr. Flood can speak to that as well. Trash removal and mail were just logistical concerns, again, that the association wants to make sure are properly addressed. It's a fairly tight site. Trash removal is, I believe, will be privately contracted, and so they just want to ensure that there's a proper plan in place there. As I said, the Cole Pocket building, that is one of the concerns as a safety concern. It's also a bit of an environmental concern. The association has reason to believe that there may be environmentally sensitive materials in or around that site, and we just want to make sure all of that is properly dealt with. Traffic flow was another concern. Again, it's a tight site. I haven't seen the 1959 access agreement that Mr. Flood references. We can take a look at that, but just making sure that the flow of traffic, is both safe and does not disrupt the flow to the residents of the condominium association. So in closing, as I said, the association is in favor of the proper development of this area, but we want to make sure that that this is done right and that the association's interests are protected. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Counselor.
If I could just
Absolutely.
address a couple
Sure.
of issues. I think the first one was the access and the security concern. I told you we don't plan to use their freight elevator. We're going to put our own elevator in. As far as the stairs are concerned, those stairs are in our building. You people have an easement to use them. So we would be using that as a second means of egress to the building. Coal Pocket building, well, that's done. Once this is done, that would be the next step. There's nothing we can do now because we don't own it, but John DeAngelis has met with Chuck Parrott of the Lowell Historic Board to discuss securing the top of the building. I guess there's some bricks that, they have the screening down below to stop bricks from falling. So once we acquire the property, he's made a commitment to Chuck Parrott that he'd go up and he's going to secure the top of the building so that fencing can be removed. So that's going to be done. But we're not developing that building at this point in time. Once we finish the turbine building, then we'd move over to that one. Traffic flow and safety, I've given you a copy of the access agreement. Everybody has the right to come in the same way. Mail delivery, wherever the post office wants us to put a mailbox, we will, whether it be in the front of the building or it be inside the building. Waste removal, I told you, we're going to have roll-out dumpsters, which will be picked up by a private trash company. And as far, I understand there were some concerns with environmental issues in the Coal Pocket building. There were some oil tanks underground. They have all been filled with, according to John DeAngelis, they've all been filled with sand and been signed off by the fire department. So that's all I can tell you at this point in time. But Mr. Monahan intends to work with both condominium associations. Hopefully, this development will be an asset to everybody, asset to the city, and improve the whole, improve the neighborhood, so.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak in favor of the project? In favor?
Hello, I'm Kathleen Marson. I've lived at 200 Market Street for 18 years, along with all of my neighbors here. Obviously, we're overall in favor of this development. We'd be happy to see that mostly the safety concerns finally taken care of. No one has mentioned Canal Place 2, but if you go to the back of this building, is where for years we've been trying to have inspectional services do something about the panes of glass that are literally falling out of the windows to the ground from 6 floors up. So overall, and I'm going to just hand this to Mr. Flood, the basic issues that we have concerns about are the safety in the roadway. The one advantage to the staging that's in that area right now has stopped cut-through traffic from Dutton to Market, where we've had several residents actually hit by cars prior to the staging going up. So if there was a passive way to stop that cut-through traffic, that would be great, and everyone would still have access. Trash is another issue. There's no place to place these trash containers except at their front door, which is also my front door. So just, finding a way to keep that tidy would be, nice for everyone. And notifications, I know that there's a lot of other boards, and I don't know what the specific requirements are by the city to notify the 3 condo associations that abut this. Canal Place 1 is the only touching abutter, but we'd like to be notified or to have the developer notify us for the subsequent board meetings. And I think the only other thing that I wanted to say is, yeah, I guess that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak in favor?
Hi, my name is James Wild, and I'm a resident at Canal Place 1. I'm on the top floor of Canal Place 1, and my view is directly on the roof of the turbine building. So I'm generally in favor of it, but my question to John DeAngelis and the attorneys is there any plan for the roof there? Is there any plan to put up any structure on the roof that would increase the height or affect the view? Thanks.
In answer to that question, there's no plans for anything to be done on the roof. It's going to stay the way it is.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion will close. And anybody in opposition? Anybody in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? At this time, I'll turn it over to any of the board members have any questions.
I have a question
Yes, Bob?
to the Attorney Flood. How do the vehicles access this parking? Where's the access come through?
From Market Street, through on that plan.
Okay, and there's none, it's been shut off for the Dutton Street parking
My
lot?
understanding, but I haven't completely researched that side. They will own the passageway out to where the road comes in from the bridge, but I haven't, there's so many plans, Bob, in that area of easements that I haven't got my hands on the complete thing. Maybe there is another way out, but that's a definite way in.
Right now, there is no way out there.
I might find it when I get into it more.
Okay. Okay.
Any other board members?
I have a
Yeah, Mr. Lockhart?
Just on procedure, do you have to come back here for site plan approval?
No, you don't, Rich, because this is under 8.12. It's within the artist overlay district, so, and it's a conversion of an old mill building, so you don't need site plan approval.
Okay, that's right. But
You just need the special
Nice
permit.
to see a clear definition of how the traffic flows, and that's really all I'm getting at.
It's the same way it's been for years. Everyone's gone in the same way, and that's,
I mean, I went back in there, and you can't really,
well, with the fencing there now, you have a problem. But
right,
once
that's all.
that cold pocket is fixed, according to Chuck Parrott, we'll be able to take those out. And if the easement goes to all of the parties, and if there's a real concern about traffic cutting through, maybe they can all get together and put in some sort of a speed bump or those metal, strips that go across the slow traffic. But
do you have a date for the historic board?
I don't think we have a definite date yet, no. No.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions and comments. Under the DMU zone, I just want to make sure that the easement is sufficient. And Joe, I don't know if you can speak to this, but there's not too many requirements to meet in the DMU zone, but one of them is 25-foot frontage. I'm assuming the easement satisfies that, or is that going to require a variance?
I believe the easement will be able to satisfy it, but I'll need to dig into it further, having not reviewed the easement itself, but it may be able to cover it.
I would think, Jerry, that's a
time.
prior non-conforming building, and that
I don't think
entrance
you'd have
was
a
there
problem, but I was just
prior to
curious.
zoning, and, you know, I think that if that was a problem, they would have handled it in 59 when they did that. So, I mean, that's the way people have been going in there for years.
Right.
I
Well,
don't think-
1959, I don't imagine it was a 25-foot frontage, because the DMU zone didn't even exist at
No,
that
I
point.
know that, I know that, so,
So,
I mean, it's
yeah.
probably non-conforming.
Yeah, no, I
Anyway, so-
understand. But as you know, as a formality, you may have to still go before the ZBA. And another question, to Mr. Lockhart's point, though, one of the, you know, when I was over there visiting, and I was taking pictures, and I wasn't sure if I was even looking at the right building, but apparently I was, so that's reassuring, is there was a number of people I observed walking through where it's gated and it's covered overhead. As I try, you know, and again, to Mr. Lockhart's point, as we try to visualize this, I understand that's the access point, but is there any plans to put any sidewalk for people, so that people will be walking in the roadway that will be accessing the
I
site?
think they've done it for years. I mean, we don't.
Well,
don't
for
own
years,
that.
there hasn't been a parking garage under that building. I
No,
mean,
but there
that's
are
my,
other, there are other parking areas within there, and just before it, there's a parking lot.
Right.
I mean, we only have easement rights over it, we don't have, we don't own that.
yeah, you don't own that, yeah.
I mean, if it's a problem of parking, I suppose, if you didn't want them to park in the building, which I think is a good idea, it's close enough to the garage to enter an agreement with the city if you had to, but
Right.
I think this is a better use for that basement floor.
So who would control, you know, to enforce, to make sure that there's no parking within the access alley or roadway?
Oh, sure. We can post signs, sure.
Post signs in there to make sure that,
Yeah, I mean, you want it open. Once that fencing's out, you want it open, yeah.
right, right. I mean, I think there should be some signage relative to no parking along there. I think that's in order to keep that as free as possible, rather than have people having to dodge in and out of.
I'll tell you, when I went down there myself to look at it, and I met Mr. DeAngelis down there, I didn't have a sticker.
Right.
And I saw the sign, Christopher's Towing, and I was told to watch my car or it would be gone. So I guess they control it pretty good. Yeah, they control the no parking down there pretty good. So you'd need a sticker or something to be able to go in there anyways.
Again, you know, there's few things that we have control of at the board here, and I think that, you know, access to that site in a safe way, take into account pedestrian safety as well as vehicular safety.
You have no
So,
problem.
I think that needs to be addressed. Could you explain the trash pickup once again as well?
We're
please?
going to have rollout dumpsters inside the building. There'll be a private contractor come once or twice a week, depending on how much trash there is, and they'll roll them out, dump them into the hauling vehicle, and take it out. There'll be nothing outside. No dumpsters outside, there'll be no trash outside. It'll all be inside the building, in the basement level. I think on the new plan, he shows 5 or 6 dumpsters, rollout bins.
And in this, just to assure Mr. Wild's concerns as well as, obviously you reassured that there's no plans to do anything on the roof of the building, and obviously the plans that have been submitted here do not show that there's anything planned to, at least this proposal, to do anything on the roof of that building. So what we are approving here tonight.
Yeah, I said there
yeah.
was no plans. Mr. Lockhart's on the historic board. Everything has to go to the historic board, and it's not going to happen, so.
I would suspect that would be the case. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Boyle?
I don't have, well, I have one question on the project. Are you proposing any landscaping work?
There's no place to landscape, Joe.
Okay, I visited the site today, and what I noticed was the steps down to the alley that runs between Canal Place 1 and Canal Place 2. Is that your property?
Yes.
Okay. I noticed clearly that needed some work.
Well, I mean, I think that would be within the jurisdiction of the Historic Board anyway, so we'll be willing to work with the Historic Board for landscaping if at all possible.
Yeah, that was my next question about historic board jurisdiction. Landscaping is within the board's purview?
Yeah, typically, we don't get into great detail, but we have that ability to do that, sure.
Yes,
Right.
If it
Okay.
enhances
they do that. I can remember when I was in the napping building, that when that was approved, you couldn't put such and such color mulch in the front, you couldn't do things like that, so they have control over that.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions from the board members? No.
I have no further questions.
So we're only here for the special permit. And obviously, in your narrative, you indicated that the building was over 60 years old, which we have to have for the 8.1, and other reasons for the building to be built. Okay.
But I think you can look at that plan on the inside of the building, and if you read the date,
Yeah.
it's like 1902 or something on the bottom, so there's no question it's been there for more than 60 years.
And I know it was in your narrative anyways to meet the criteria, so thank you for that. Okay, so what's the wish of the body?
Mr. Chairman, I think there's an additional member of the public who wishes to speak.
Oh, please, sir.
I just have one question. Across from the building is the building that they said they're going to put a roof on. Is the chimney part of this whole project too?
It's not part of what we're here for tonight, but would be owned by, when we acquire it, we'll own the chimney, yes.
Okay, because I've lived there for 15 years and have looked.
Can you just turn the microphone so we can't hear you? I'm sorry.
I've lived there for 15 years. I'm a resident owner, and I look out my window every day, and that chimney is cracking all the way down. I know it's supposedly historic, but something's got to be done with that chimney, because it's going to end up on our building. That's the only concern I have.
Thank you, sir. Is that something you guys look at the historic board, Rich?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it would be.
they'll evaluate all that.
Anything further, council? No? Okay. Okay, what's the wish of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we issue the special permit for the redevelopment of 246 Market Street with the condition that the Historic Board passes
Okay.
the project.
So we have a motion on the board to recommend approval as long as it meets the requirement and is approved by the historic board.
Mr. Chairman, if the maker of the motion would not mind to just add to that satisfactory review of the access easement by the city's law department, I think
that's good.
would be appropriate, and is also is to also have no parking on the access road to the site from the existing parking area.
Is that acceptable to amend the motion? Okay, the motion has been amended as indicated with those three conditions. So motion's been made and,
Mr. Chairman, if I could, would it be acceptable to amend the motion conditioning our approval on approval of the historic board to include specifically references to both the facade and the landscaping?
I have no problem with that, it all depends on if the historic board.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, okay.
Fine.
All right, so that's agreed to by the maker of the motion, so as amended.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, chair votes yes. So the motion is approved, and your next meeting will be at the historic board.
Yes, thank you very
So
much.
anybody who's here this evening has any further questions, that matter will be taken up at the historic board meeting. When do they meet, Rich? They meet,
Oh, we're meeting on the 8th, but they won't.
no, but what nights do you usually meet?
Oh, Monday nights.
Okay, so be it in the,
Might be the 15th.
okay,
8th or
thank you.
15th. No, 8th or whatever that October date is.
Okay, thank you.
This is so much control over.
That's a good project.
That's so much control. I defer to we're only in there for the special permit.
Oh, yeah, everybody gets a whack of this historic. I'm sure they'll end up meaning something from ZBA. Concom, because they're next to the canal.
I would think the fire department.
Okay, moving along, the next matter we have is a site plan and a special permit for 1400 Gorham Street. A site plan review and a special permit for 1400, 1422, 1422-1, and 1434-1 Gorham Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by 1400 Motors LLC seeking site plan review and special permit approval for a residential development located at the above address. The proposal consists of construction of 47 residential units with access to the site coming from Gorham Street via 2 driveways. The applicant is seeking site plan review under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance and special permit under Article 12 of the Lowell zoning ordinance, section 11.3.2. The parcel in total comprises of approximately 143,955 square feet of land and are located in the suburban mixed-use zoning district. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Rogers Street, Lowell, representing Lexington Development Group LLC. Excuse me. You want to set up, Brian? Where do you want him to set up?
How about right over there? Yes, to the end there, the council chair, that way I think the whole audience can see, if you don't mind, over by the radiators? Thank you. That should do it, that way we can also see you.
Yeah, with me tonight, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, is Rob Burge, who's sitting right over here, who is the manager and the principal of Lexington Development Group LLC. Steve Cavello next to him, who is the project manager, and Steve Stratford, who is the broker for the development, the third seat. Also with me is Brian Godot of Hancock Associates, the engineer, and Katie Enright, and also Mr. Costello, Andy Costello from 1400 Motors. As the notice states, we're in front of you tonight requesting site plan approval under 11.4 and also a special permit under Article 12 on the premises located at 1400, 1422, 1422.1, and 1434 Gorham Street. The entire site contains 143,995 square feet and is zoned SMU. You will recall that we were in front of you, I think it was last April or May, requesting that the zone for 1422.1 and 1434.1 be changed from TTF to SMU, and that was approved by this board and also the city council. I think you're all familiar with the property, the former site of 1400 Motors, which was a Cadillac Oldsmobile dealership for many years. Also has been closed for many years, and the site has seriously deteriorated. As stated in the application and the narrative, Lexington Development Group LLC proposes to demolish the existing structure on the any structure on the site, and also to remove all paving. The development calls for the construction of 47 residential units as a condominium. There'll be 23 duplex units and 1 standalone unit. And the project will be served by 2 private roadways accessing off Gorham Street as shown on the plan. Each unit will have 2 stories of living space, which includes a living room, dining area, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and 1.5 baths. On the basement level, there'll be a 1-car garage, and additional parking spaces will be provided in front of the garage. We're also providing on the site, and Brian can show you when he goes up there, 17 additional visitor spaces. Plan also provides for 13 light poles throughout the development to light the roadways, plus quite a bit of landscaping. Lexington Development Group LLC is in the landscaping business, so he has provided a pretty detailed landscaping plan to do the development. As I also stated in my narrative, the design of the project is very similar to the River's Edge project that abuts the site on the east. Back in May, when I appeared before the city council, there were, I think, 29 duplex units already built in River's Edge, and there was plans for another 27. So we're trying to keep it similar with the duplex units. And it's not a departure from the surrounding neighborhood. With the demolition of the structure and the removal of the paving, and with the environmental cleanup that we are proposing, it'll be a great asset it'll be an improvement to the neighborhood, especially with the additional planting and green space throughout the site. As to staff comments, the engineer will address many of them, because we got the letter, and we get another letter from the city engineer last night, so he's got those answers. But I just want to address the AUL myself, because this is something that we knew about before we even entered the purchase and sale agreement. And before we entered into the purchase and sale agreement, we met with Brian Chapman of Mill City Environmental to discuss the situation. He was quite familiar with the site for various other people that had looked at it, so we knew what was going on there. And he assured us that when we acquire the site and start construction, he'd be able to abate all of that contamination within the site. It's my understanding there'll be an LSP on site when everything is done. Once it's completed, a report will be submitted to the DEP, and the DEP, if everything's satisfactory with them, they'll sign off. The reason it hasn't been done till now is because if you look in the site plan, the area of the AUL was within the confines of the automobile dealership. So in order to do it, you had to tear down the building. And at that time, I think it was, I forget the year of the AUL, it was in the early 90s, I think. It was still operating as a car dealership, so it was never done. So that's why the AUL was there. So it's something that can be removed. We intend to remove it. I'll tell you right now that the cost for removal in the site is quite hefty. He intends to do it. We have no problem with your condition that no development until it's signed off by either the DEP or the city environmental officer. We're going to do it because it's the only way we're going to put together a nice development. There was one other issue raised by the city engineer, and had to do with a parking easement. Now, you probably don't know anything about it, but in doing the title, it came to light that on a portion of the premises located at 1422 Gorham Street, there are abutting properties known as lots B and C. There's a church there now, and I don't know what's on the 3rd Street, but there were cross easements for parking at that point in time. So what we have done is, those have now been terminated by a reciprocal easement agreement that has been signed and now has been recorded. The Middlesex North District Registry. So that's my story. I'm now going to turn it over to the engineers. They can explain the project. They can discuss staff comments and the engineers' comments, and we're here to answer any questions. Rob's here to answer any questions you might have.
Good evening, everyone. Katie Enright with Hancock Associates. I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit about the engineering on the project and also talk to you about some of the comments that we've received. What Brian's handing out to you tonight is our responses to the comments and some exhibits that help explain the comments a little bit better. One of the things I want to point out is that we're significantly reducing the amount of impervious on this site. I know Jim mentioned that currently we probably should have done a colored rendering of the existing conditions so you could see it. Most of you are familiar that the site has a very large building on it, and pretty much the remainder of the site is paved. It's about 83% impervious right now. We're actually adding a significant amount of green space by doing this proposal, bringing it down to about 50% impervious. So there's a significant amount of green space that you're seeing on this plan that's not there today. As Jim mentioned, it does also fit nicely into the neighborhood as far as the neighborhood being mostly residential in nature. The building right now is approximately 2 feet from the northernmost property line. We're going to be meeting the setbacks with this proposal, so we'll be 21 feet off the side setback. So it'll obviously increase and better kind of the neighborhood feel out there, and take out this commercial use kind of tucked in between. The site is being drained underground. Essentially what we're doing is we're meeting stormwater management standards with recharge on site, so we're significantly decreasing the amount of runoff off the site. Currently, most of the site drains through the River's Edge subdivision. There's a catch basin on our site that actually collects a significant amount of water in the back parking lot that actually connects to the River's Edge drainage system that goes out to a wetland eventually near 495. We are minimizing the flow to that by about 2/3 what exists there today. So we're meeting our pre to post development flow there. We're also reducing the volume pretty significantly. We're also cleaning the water that goes there now, which everything on site basically goes through a single catch basin right now with no TSS removal, no cleaning whatsoever. The site is being captured by deep sump-putted catch basins that run, most of them run through an infiltrator area that's in one of the green spaces in the center of the project, and that will clean the water and overflow through the back property through the same pipe that discharges through River's Edge currently. Sewer is all proposed to be gravity. The roadway has been constructed is proposed to be constructed to 24 feet and curbed. These will be private drives, essentially. They're not looking to be roads. They're not contained within a right-of-way. We're proposing sidewalks on one side to connect the units throughout. I'm going to let Brian talk a little bit about the detail on the sidewalks to kind of get you to understand a little bit better what we're looking to do with grades and curbing, et cetera. That was one of the comments that the city, both the city planner and the city engineer had. If you'd like, I can go through these pretty quickly as far as the responses that we've put forward today. Jim already pretty much talked about the AUL, which was the first comment. I'm going to go through the development services comments first. So the first one was the AUL, and the second is that the two-family structures at the northeast and southeast corners be converted to single-family or better align the driveways. What we've done in those two areas, they're both kind of the upper corners where they have a curved driveway. There was plenty of space there for us to create a turnaround area, so we've added turnaround areas to both of those driveways to make them so that people can back out of the garage, turn around, and come face forward back into the street on those two driveways. It is recommended to have some screening in the backyards between the units proposed parallel to Suzie Circle and Sanford Street. Those are the units that run up the middle that are backyard to backyard. The first floor of these units is the garage, but what we can do is still propose some groundscape through there. Again, as Jim mentioned, it's a landscape company that's looking to construct this, so we would propose that we would put some small screening between the garages. Well, it's really the rear of the garages on each of those units, but also to propose some sort of a fencing on the deck, maybe to allow some additional privacy there at that first level. So recommended that the city engineer review and improve the utility plan and stormwater management report. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Location and dimension of snow storage areas to be identified on the plan. We've added that to a revised plan set, and we're looking to basically pile the snow storage areas in the significant landscape areas that we have on site. So there's a couple of larger landscape areas where we can pile the snow. Also, it's going to act kind of as a typical roadway. So there's green spaces along the side of the road that snow can be plowed. That's been dimensioned on the plans. The next set of comments came from city transportation engineers' comments. Again, they talked about the driveways on those two upper units with the curved driveways, which we've added the turnarounds to. The sidewalks, I'm going to let Brian talk a little bit about that when I'm done to kind of explain to you why the sidewalks are configured the way they are. again, the driveways, understanding the dimension behind the garages to make sure that a car can fit behind each of the garages for a full length so that people aren't transversing the sidewalks and walking into cars as you come to each driveway. So again, Brian's created a detail to kind of walk you through that a little bit better. As-built to be submitted in electronic form. That's a standard comment. Obviously, we concur with that. Would be happy to do that. Curb cuts have been dimensioned better. The street is 24 feet wide, but at the actual curb cut, it's 35 feet wide by the time you put the radii on out at Gorham. So that's been better dimensioned on the plan. The AUL, which we already discussed. The minimum width for the driveway, I just discussed as far as the 24 versus 35. Requirements of the parking easement, Jim went through that with you earlier. Again, the parking garage, mailbox cluster has not been sized yet. Obviously, we'll work with the postmaster to make sure that that size is adequate, but that mailbox area is in one of the larger green space areas, so once we figure that out, we can definitely shift the gazebo a little bit as to not interfere with that if it gets a little bit bigger. Again, the driveways, underground utilities are intended to be connected to all of the units. We show a typical detail as to not really busy up the plan, but construction details will be added to each of the units as we move further along in the project. The trees were shown originally over the underground system. We've moved those on the landscape plan that we've submitted to you tonight. There was a little bit of a conflict there. Service connections for water and sewer do not show elevations. Again, we're confident that everything will gravity flow. The sewer will gravity flow and it won't interfere with the water connections. And we've shown a typical detail, but again, we haven't shown them to each and every unit. City of Lowell ordinance states the owner is responsible for the sewer connection all the way to the main. We're not planning on using any existing sewer connection that's out there today. We're planning on putting in a completely new sewer connection, so we're not concerned about that, obviously, at this time. We will be applying for a driveway permit, a trench permit. Bounds being installed, it wasn't told to us where those should be installed, but we'll talk to the city engineer and find out where that makes sense to put in bounds as we develop this project and make sure that those get added to the plan. City work hours, we concur. All street markings and signage will conform to MUTCD. We've added that note to the plan. What we're showing on the private ways are stop bar and stop signs in appropriate locations. For now, there's a notification policy that we were made aware of. Curbing on streets must be vertical granite. City Street being Gorham, both of those radii on both of the driveway entrances have been shown as vertical granite in those areas. On-site curbing is different. On-site curbing is proposed to be Cape Cod berm, but that would be on the private driveway side of things. So those within the right-of-way would be vertical granite. Sidewalks will be repaired and replaced where necessary. I'll let Brian talk to that a little bit too, as far as how we designed the curb cuts into Gorham to make sure that it fits with the neighborhood and how the sidewalks go through the neighborhood now. So it basically creates a level platform, but I'll let him go through that too. Curb radius shown at Gorham Street is too large. That has been dropped down to 5 feet so that we max out at the 35 feet curb cut, which is required under the bylaw. The concrete sidewalk work must involve full panels. We've added that note to the drawings. Handicap ramps have detectable warning pads. Again, we have a detail of that on the detail sheets showing those areas. Why are the sidewalks curved in sections? Again, we'll talk about that shortly. Stormwater section, are you guys following me? Are you at the same, do you know where I am?
I'm following you.
I'm going really fast, but
Okay.
please stop me if I'm going too fast. Stormwater section, contact name, submitted to engineering for stormwater operations and maintenance. That is part of our report. There's a statement in the report that says Lexington Development Group, LLC is the sole responsible person for the operation and maintenance of the system, and those operation and maintenance sections are in the report. It tells them what parts of the system need to be maintained and how to do that. Construction site entrance has been added to the plans and it has been detailed. Location of dewatering and discharge to be shown on the plans. We've done significant soil testing out there, and there's really, we didn't really find water anywhere, and we were down pretty deep. We don't expect that that's going to be an issue. There's also pretty sandy soils out there. If that comes up, we'll talk to the city engineering department and make sure that that's approved through them. Erosion control, there's a silt fence that we've installed basically at the property line surrounding the whole site as to protect the abutters from any kind of erosion and sedimentation during a storm event. In our data report, we also talk about an erosion and sedimentation control plan, which outlines that things need to be kept on site, they need to be kept up, maintained, they need to be reviewed after storm events, et cetera. Where the site is over an acre, we will be required to file a NIPD's permit. The two streets are shown with catch basins only at each end. Streets are flat and flooding will occur. It was one of the questions or comments from the city engineer. We've designed these streets so that they essentially come up from Gorham and then back down into the site. So the streets are, where there are catch basins at the intersection of the streets, they actually flow up and then flow back down at greater than a 1% slope, so we don't believe that that's going to be an issue. But we will obviously work with the city engineer to make sure that they are comfortable with the drainage design moving forward. We did get to have a brief conversation today, but weren't able to get down into some of the details. So we don't feel it's going to be an issue. Snow and ice. Snow disposal within the city right-of-way is strictly prohibited was one of the comments, and obviously we will be keeping all the snow on site. I'm going to have Brian walk you through. He's provided you with a driveway detail that kind of shows how the driveways are going to work, and also talk about the entrance a little bit, just so that you can kind of follow what we're trying to engineer in those areas.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, gentlemen of the board. My name is Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates, and outside of all the items that Katie detailed, there seemed to be a little bit of a recurring theme regarding concern about driveways and sidewalks. There are kind of two specific areas of concern that have been brought to our attention that we had previously detailed on the original plan set and really haven't changed anything. We've just explained it narratively and with a sketch. City engineer brought up the sidewalk crossings at Gorham Street, so the two new curb cuts that we have. She was requesting that handicap ramps be installed. And what we did is we designed a raised kind of driveway entrance, not unlike every other driveway on Gorham Street, where the sidewalk is 6 feet wide, it stays continuous, and then at the entrance of the driveway, the 6-inch reveal is gained in a 2-foot section that leaves the sidewalk completely flat all the way across it. So we're not proposing tip downs inside the right-of-way because we're maintaining raised crossings at both of those curb cuts. They're just like all the adjacent properties. And that does two things. One, they're easier to navigate for pedestrians, and two, it's going to create a traffic calming environment where people that are entering and exiting the site are going to be forced to slow down to take that. It's kind of like a speed bump heading into the site. Within the entire site, where there are handicap ramps, we have proposed them according to Mass Highway standards. Now, the second concern, if you want to look at the sketch, is going to be on the interior 6-7 buildings. So the ones that are together inside the site. The concern is we have a sidewalk that's going entirely looping around, kind of in a U-shaped pattern, up Suzie and then back down to Gorham Street. And the way that the buildings are set back from the road is there's a 5-foot sidewalk and an 18-foot driveway. However, the 18-foot driveway encroaches a little bit into the sidewalk area. Now, in terms of ADA accessibility and MAAB accessibility, there's a couple of critical numbers. One, an accessible walkway is 36 inches wide. It's only 3 feet. It's not 4, it's not 5, it's not 6, it's 3 feet. And that 3 feet can be encroached upon down to 32 inches, which is 2.6 feet, for a period, or for a distance no greater than 2 feet. Provided that you again go back to a 36-inch clear space on either side of that entrance. So on this interior U, we make those accessible routes, and it's important to note that we're taking that at the most extreme edge of the driveway, at the most extreme edge of the required size of the parking space, 9 by 18 feet. If you look at the diagram, the sketch, typically your vehicle is not going to take up 18 feet. It's not going to be parked directly on the edge. And the vehicles are just, you're simply not going to get the restriction that is apparent if you just look at the space and don't look at the spaces that are being filled by the car. The second aspect to that is the concern about having kind of this curved linear sidewalk shape. Now, there's a very important reason why we did that. And it wasn't just to increase landscaping area. It's the distance between the driveways and the distance between the units don't allow you to have handicap ramps where you can go up, table, and then go back down to maintain a 6-inch curb. Because they're so close together, you actually won't get any kind of curb whatsoever. So you need some separation between the sidewalk and the edge of the roadway, so that way you can create a gutter, channelize runoff, and make the drainage work the way that it needs to work. So in terms of accessibility, it's all completely accessible. There's a reason why we designed it this way, and it meets code. I think those are the majority of the sidewalk and driveway questions. The other two were the 2 units up at the end that Katie spoke to earlier. There were some longer driveways that required a pretty far backing up movement that we eliminated with the addition of a fairly oversized turnaround for those units. Do you want to say anything else?
Do you want to show them where the snow storage is? It's on your new plan, snow storage.
Yes. Snow storage. So if we look on the plan, there's a gazebo and a cluster mailbox unit. Essentially, you have a little bit of green space in this area. You have a large green space in the parking area up over here. That's going to be where snow storage is. And then obviously with a 24-foot road and with the exterior units not being sidewalk, there's going to be an opportunity to pile snow just like you would, throughout the city. I'm good. Do you have questions?
Yes. What if you have a car that's bigger than a mid-sized car?
If we have typically
Like a
if you look-
Cadillac SUV, a pickup truck?
So the difference between mid-sized cars, compact cars, and SUVs. So say you take a Prius, a Ford Taurus, and a Ford Explorer. You're going to go from 15 feet to maybe 16 feet, and then just shy or just over 17 feet. It's not going to be that full 18 feet unless you're getting a Hummer that's in there. And typically, if you find a vehicle that's outside of the 18 feet, I mean, these are the regulations that we need to uphold, which is 9 by 18. So we're showing the absolute extreme, at the extreme edge of the driveway, and it works and meets ADA requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure, go ahead.
just on that theme while we're on there. On your diagram here, the line that you have here, is that the 18 feet?
That is, so there's kind of a box.
The broken line, where is the 18 feet? At the street line, or is it at that?
No, it's not at the street line. I apologize for it not being clear. The street line is just showing you exactly where the gutter is. That's where the start of the sidewalk would begin, and that's where the street begins. So the line that's just north of that, that's going to be your 18 feet, and it's 8 by 9. It's 9 by 18, and it's again at the complete edge of the space that's the most critical and tight. And these are units that are, this is 36 and 37. So these are these units right here, which actually have, because of the angle of the roadway itself, these are the ones that are tightest. So if you look at the other unit, unit 37, even on that extreme angle, we're almost getting that 3 feet that we need to be compliant without any sort of protrusion into the accessible walk.
All right, so someone in a wheelchair would take that circle, come right out in front of that car. Now where you have the broken lines is the street line and the line that denotes the 18 feet. That would be the space in which someone in a wheelchair would travel to get to the next loop in the sidewalk?
If that space was occupied, that's correct. So if you look at the detailed grading plan, we specifically called out these units and detailed every top of curb, bottom of curb, and back of sidewalk grade to make sure that the intent is met, where you're meeting less than 2% cross slope, you're meeting all of the other ADA requirements. That would be on sheet 4. There's going to be a typical unit detail grading. So if you take a look on the left-hand side, again, it's unit 36 and 37, which is why we detailed it typically, because these are some of the most challenging units that we have. We called out top of curb, bottom of curb, very detailed in this area to ensure that not only are we meeting these accessible walk widths, we're meeting the grades as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything further on that, Terry, no? Do you have anything further? I'm sorry.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
You guys good?
I have a question.
Sure. Mr. Maravich has a question for
I
you?
don't want to belabor this sidewalk thing, but the area between the 18-foot dotted line and the street dotted line, is that sloped?
It's going to be sloped at less than 2%, so it's going to be nice and flat, just like your sidewalks have to be, just like anything else. And again, that's why I was just referenced sheet 5, where we showed the typical unit, these actual units being graded out, real world, how you would need to do them to make sure that we hit all of the numbers that we need to.
Okay, is this a condo or a rental?
These are,
Condos.
Condos?
Condos, yeah.
So the owner of one of these condos owns a 4-door pickup truck that's going to be longer than a mid-sized car, and he parks right to the street line. So what happens to the wheelchair-bound person?
so
They
regardless.
have to send him out into the street?
So regardless, if we were to set the 18 by 9 space back 2 feet to make the sidewalk 5 feet, if he parked at the curb line, he's parked on the sidewalk. So regardless if it was this community or one of the other communities or another house anywhere in Lowell, I mean, he's parking on the sidewalk, so he wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay, but is that area going to be striped or something to indicate sidewalk?
That could be a consideration.
Or a change of pavement type?
We might be able to texture the pavement or do something to make sure you can see the continuous stripe
People have to
across the
understand
driveway.
That is part of the sidewalk and not the driveway.
To address that point, Bob, I think that if there's a concern about trucks or something blocking the sidewalk, then we could have rules and regulations that if they're violating, then they're going to be fined by the condominium association. Yeah.
You all done, Brian, or anything else?
Yeah, I'm good.
Anybody else from the applicant, Mr. Flood?
I'm all done. I just want to congratulate Brian. We didn't get those comments till 5 o'clock last night from the city
Oh, yeah.
engineer, and he worked all day to get those responses and change the plans. Other than what you have in front of you tonight, that plan does conform to zoning as it exists today in the city. And I think with the additional green space, I think it's going to be an enhancement of the entire neighborhood, so.
I have one other question. Who chose the distance between the buildings and why?
So the site
Ryan,
naturally...
is your mic on there? Just make sure the green button
Yeah,
down
can-
below.
Is this better?
Yeah, see this little green dot right there? Just push this piece right there.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, that way they're picking up at home, think we're just talking to ourselves.
Okay, so the way the site laid itself out essentially dictates how far the units are. I mean, we're respecting very large side yards all the way along. We're respecting the front yards along both of the streets, and we're required to have a 24-foot driveway. In this zoning district, we need the 18 feet of driveway. The units with the decks, I mean, it's more how the site laid itself out. If you look at the community, you can kind of see up here in the River's Edge community, their distance between the units are not much different than what we have here.
I'm just concerned that the buildings may be too close to each other. I mean, I have a driveway between my house and my neighbor's house, and I can hear every conversation that's going on in that house if my windows are open and theirs are. Where's the privacy?
I think that's a marketing issue that we would be faced, Bob, if it was built. I mean, I think that because of the additional expenses, based on our meetings with Brian Chapman, before we even entered a purchase and sale agreement, it was subject to getting a minimum of these number of units because of the additional costs. So without those units, the money's not there to do the
And this
project.
conforms to zoning.
Yeah, it conforms to zoning in every respect, but there's going to be, the removal of the contamination is going to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And I think it's to benefit everybody, so.
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, does anybody from the public want to be heard in favor of the project? Anybody here want to speak in favor? In favor? Oh, sure, come at the microphone and state your name and address, please, sir.
Joe Danino, I'm a resident of River's Edge. Two questions, one's more of a follow-up. The first question is about deconstruction and demolition of the current site. What is the current plan on that? Is there going to be any kind of noise level control, or is it just going to be done kind of at will and it gets done as it gets done?
Well, by our city regs, they can only do construction by certain hours, right?
Yeah.
And that, I know they've adhered to, but I don't know about the noise requirement. Mr. Flake, do you want to address that? I mean, I know the construction, you have to do it during certain hours with a construction permit.
You know,
I know
don't think
the hours of operation are detailed by our city operation, by what you can do for construction, I
do
understand
you
that.
want to answer that, Rob? Let Rob Burge answer, because he,
Yeah, you come over here, Rob. Thank you. Just on the microphone so everybody can hear you. Thank you.
We're obviously going to follow the guidelines of the city in demolition. We have a pretty extensive demolition to be done there with all the metal and the concrete. Be recycling all the metal, taking that down carefully, and we will be taking the concrete away. You know, it's a part of the project. It needs to be removed. You know, we'll follow any dust requirements that we need to. My excavation contractor, the proposed one, is well aware of what needs to be done. You know, we're going to have the silt fence around the outside of the property, and that's pretty much where we're at with it. There is basement space underneath the parts portion of the building, which is on the left-hand side of the building. That area, we're going to leave a lot of the fill. There's a lot of fill in the middle of the parking lot. If you look at the contour, we can use a lot of that fill and keep it on site. So a lot of that stuff's going to be reutilized. We have thousands of yards of contaminated soil that need to be removed out of there. My removal is upwards of $300,000 to $400,000. And that's where I'm at with the numbers. I know I'm getting a little sidelined here, but people have questioned, you know, the space between the units and so on. In order for me to make this project feasible, I have to get the 47 units in there. That soil is under the ground, those contaminants are there, it hasn't been addressed. It wasn't addressed by the current owner for good reason. The building was a structure, and it's there. The building is in complete disarray out there now. There's ongoing dumping, graffiti, vandalism. It's out of control. There's cars parked out there, and the biggest portion of that property, the unknown, is what's sitting under that soil. I'm going to completely clean all of that up by current guidelines. We will adhere to all the town, city standards as far as noise control, working, and so on. Our goal is to create a beautiful complex out there, beautifully landscaped, and continue with it from there.
Joe, what was your second question?
He touched on it just briefly. The other question was you said there was a dust fence, or there will be. Would that be erected permanently, or would that just be temporary for the construction?
We hose, when we're doing removal, we have somebody there that will be actually, will have the active water, will be hosing down. They're grabbing with the activators and so on. I will be constantly knocking that down with water. There won't be any permanent fencing on the back of the property. We might utilize the existing metal fences there. I own a pretty extensive landscape company and some of the other complexes that I've done and so on. We really landscape, so we are proposing along the back of the property to landscape that. But as far as the dust removal and so on, that'll be pretty much done by labor, soaking things down and so on.
Okay.
There won't just be a gentleman in an excavator picking up concrete and dropping it in a 10-wheel.
Okay.
And again, that's, there's rules and regulations for that. We plan to adhere to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the project? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion. Anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? At this point in time, I'll turn it over to any of the planning board members. They have any questions? Mr. Fischett, can I start with you?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I appreciate you working overnight to get the responses, but because my next question is, Joe, did DPD have a chance to review the responses to the concerns?
No, Mr. Fischett, we hadn't had an opportunity to review the responses. I would imagine the city engineer would be interested in seeing some of the responses, but we hadn't had at least I hadn't had an opportunity to review it prior to now.
Sure, okay, all right. The question is, in looking at the plans as well, and I'm assuming it's the building that is the church, Mr. Flood, that you had the easement
That'd be to the right of the
with.
site?
To the right.
To the right.
Yep.
There's a very,
Over River's Edge.
very unattractive guardrail that looks like a guardrail on a side of a highway. Is there any plans, is that, on which property does that sit, and is that going to remain?
Let the engineer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, so the guardrail that you're referring to,
Yeah,
You can approach council, yeah.
my apologies, it's a little
You show that
dark,
to
but,
Brian, but,
yeah, it goes to a chain link fence. The guardrail basically rides the line, the property line. Yeah. So that is the property line. Part of it's going to be potentially on the church's property, and part of it's potentially going to be on ours. So, we might be willing to speak to the church to.
Most likely, with active vehicles
sure.
being parked there, I have absolutely no issue removing it. Again, I'm very sensitive to the landscape long term.
Yeah, I think making the project more attractive, it would be beneficial.
Cars going that way, so to be able to sod or roll arborvitae, something to give some long-term hedging, because we are going to have units there.
Right.
We don't want the units looking into the back of the church too, because that's obviously very active on Sunday mornings and stuff, and, residents in my complex might want to.
Yeah, exactly, that's that.
We would be very open to removing that temporary.
And I think now that we have the communication with the church, with the termination agreement today, we'll be able to work with them to do it, because I think they don't need it for anything.
Sure,
I think it was probably
exactly.
for the car dealership it was put in.
Yeah, it made sense because it was one big paved lot, and it would.
So no problem, we'll work with them and take care of that. That's not a problem.
All right. And now, again, unless I'm missing something, and in my understanding is you specialize in landscaping, but I really didn't see a formal landscaping plan. Has DPD looked at any kind of landscaping plan relative to just, I heard you were going to add, plantings on the rear possibly, and we talked on the side, but I don't see any of that on the plan.
It's sheet 6, it's
Well,
landscape and lighting.
other than
Landscape and lighting.
Yeah, I see this here. I see the trees in the front.
A bunch of trees, a lot of trees.
Well, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trees in the front, and I don't see very much elsewhere, and I guess I don't see anything along the side where we talked about where the church is. No, I understand, but again, I don't see anything on the,
There's not a single tree or a single piece of vegetation on this property. We're going to utilize, we do a lot of landscaping.
oh, no, I can appreciate that, but usually when a plan comes before us, then that's incorporated into the landscape plan. So, I mean, that's, again, I appreciate, the streetscape is going to improve considerably with what you've got proposed here. It's just the site, around the perimeter of the site, and especially you had mentioned too, along the rear, you're looking at putting some plantings, but I would look to just to have you continue to work with DPD on a landscaping plan as it relates to screening on the rear of the site and the side of the site.
Yeah.
The aesthetics of the project, when I'm going to sell the project.
Right, right.
They're also going to continue to
This is a suburban project.
make the neighborhood look good, so.
Correct.
We're completely open to any input or additional things
Okay,
satisfied.
okay.
I think the reason there was probably nothing over there, Jerry, was because the fence was there.
Yeah, no, and I understand, but, it would be...
Now we'll remove it, we'll
be a
make it
little
pretty.
negligent on our part to just have it come through and
Make it pretty.
not address that. The next issue again is on the snow storage. I'll be honest with you, it's a little unclear to me. You've got a lot of, for lack of a better term, it's an internal road, but you have an awful lot of curb cuts. So, a plow going through there is gonna bury everybody's driveway. And there's really not a lot of green space to put the snow on top of that. So I'm just looking at, matter of fact, what I thought you were gonna tell me is there's 2 spots where you have parking, 4 parking spots and 3 parking spots. I thought that's where you're gonna shove it off to the green space over there, but, I mean, what is the formal plan? I wasn't very clear when you described that. You made it sound like a plow is just gonna go through the internal roads and plow it, but I think that's gonna be difficult.
Right, so, I mean, realistically, we do have a decent amount of open space within the site where we can use formal storage areas. The areas around what I was trying to point out are basically for units and excess snow and whatnot. There is green space between sidewalks, there is green space in between units. That's more for individual condos and however the snow management actually gets shaken out. But there are rather large areas throughout the site for the majority of the snowbank piles that aren't going to obstruct line of sight, that aren't going to get in the way. I mean, worst comes to worst, we do have these excess parking spaces that are over and above what are required by zoning that we would be able to use and store snow there.
That's snow storage, but what's the snow? Exactly, yeah. Well, it looks like a tree. Can you have in the, for lack of a better term, let's call it the cul-de-sac, the turnaround at the end there. In the center, you have it listed as snow removal, or snow storage, I should say. But is that going to be just green space, or do you have a tree planted there, it looks like? I mean, it looks like you've got a tree
Yeah, it
planted
looks like we got a tree right there. I mean, obviously, snow storage would be sensitive to the landscaping that's proposed.
Right.
You can't have excessive landscaping or excessive green space where you can store snow, so it's a trade-off. I mean, maybe you don't pile the snow here 20 feet tall and bury the tree. Maybe it's, during the smaller events, you can get some snow in there in the couple of passes it takes. And then in the areas where there is no plantings proposed, those can be the larger snow storage areas.
And I think in the narrative, Sherry, I said if there's excessive snow, we'd remove it from site anyway.
Move it off-site, yeah.
You
No,
said that. You want to address it?
You come over to the microphone to pick up. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Because we're also in that business, we're in the development business, obviously, and a division of my company is a landscape company, so we do a lot of commercial snow removal and so on. To adequately take care of the complex, there's obviously going to be a condo fee, and we're going to be plowing the driveways, we're going to be shoveling the sidewalks, we as the contractor, and then probably down the road a different landscape company. In order to do these complexes, it's done all over the city. I own a lot of apartments in the city. we have to utilize our equipment. There will be bobcats in here. So the fact of a standard plow truck with an 8 or a 10-foot blade going through the complex and putting these high berms that are covering fire hydrants and so on, as being a private complex, that won't be put up with. Obviously, there'll be a board, of directors in here and residents and so on. We'll utilize bobcats to remove the snow from the driveways, shoveling the walkways, and with those machines, the snow can be stacked literally anywhere. I've reviewed it, and I believe in even the toughest of winters here, with snow being moved around, that there won't be any of the extra parking spots that we've supplied will be blocked at any point. There is a good amount of grassy area you can see on the right-hand side, and snow compacts pretty good when you have a small machine. So
The intention for you to be the management company, and I know it'll be in builder control for a little while.
How
Are
we
you going to be the
normally do
management
it-
company when it's completed, or?
No, how I normally do it, and I've done a good amount of complexes and so on, is we obviously will maintain it with the separate corporation going through. We'll maintain it to the final sellout, and we usually lock in at least a year to 2 years afterwards to make sure that the vegetation, the irrigation systems, plantings, snow removal, and upkeep is kept to a certain level. It's all legal. We get 3 bids, we submit a bid and so on. It allows us to stay on site as being the developer, knowing the roads, knowing the infiltration systems and so on, and it makes for a good transition, especially where you have 47 new families moving in, hopefully within a 2 to 3 year basis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Any of the board members have any questions?
I have one.
Mr. Malovich?
I don't see any hydrants within the site.
So,
Fire department reviewed this site plan, Joe?
Yes, the fire department did review the plans. Given the AUL present on the property, they weren't sure if the site was going to be changing at all in terms of its layout, so they didn't give a final determination whether or not a hydrant would be required as a part of the development. They were waiting to get information about the AUL.
Okay.
So they didn't give a final determination on that.
just to add, there are 3 hydrants that we're proposing. One's going to be on the right lower hand side, one's at the top left corner.
Brian, could you mind just pointing them out first, if
Oh,
you would? Thank you.
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So we have a total of 3 hydrants proposed. One's going to be proposed down here near the roadway. One's going to be proposed up here to cover this area, and the third one is proposed down near the cul-de-sac, just to get good coverage throughout the entire property.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, Bob?
No, thank
Mr.
you.
Boyle?
My question, a question I have, what was your, why did you decide to put these all as no more than 2 units per building?
We could have put them in rows, based on this. We knew we could supposedly, hopefully get 47 units in here. The reasoning for all the N units was light, windows, ventilation. I know it's been brought up, a couple concerns of the distance between the buildings. I mean, we technically could have gone right around there and put, 6, 8 units in a row, where people would basically just have the windows in the front of their unit, the windows in the back. They wouldn't have any natural light in the sides. It's been done in Lowell, it's been done in other complexes. I wanted every unit to be an N unit to maximize the windows. And that was the reasoning behind that. And to try to stay in character with the neighborhood where River's Edge is mainly duplexes also, to put a wall of buildings along the back of the property line where they have very nicely even placed duplexes, didn't feel wouldn't help the neighborhood, wouldn't help marketing. So we tried to mirror our complex very similar to River's Edge.
Anything else, Mr. Moore?
About the sidewalk design, one option would have been to have the sidewalk directly abut the driveway portion of the road and have the green space, the landscape space at the back of the sidewalk. Is the reason that didn't happen because you didn't have the width when you had to incorporate the top of the curbstone?
Essentially, it wasn't the length that we needed, because when we introduced curbing, it's a 6-inch reveal. So when you put a sidewalk directly up against the road, you're going to tip up on both sides, and you're going to tip back down. And then there's a specific tabling requirement. We simply do not have the distance between either driveways or units themselves to do that. So that's why we pulled the sidewalk away from the road. That way we can maintain a 6-inch reveal all the way across the gutter line to convey drainage, and then maintain a nice flat sidewalk around the development.
Okay. That's what I had in terms of questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. I like the idea, how, as you indicated, instead of just stacking them, make it look like River's Edge, because we've been working with River's Edge for a long time now, as you probably well know. And that way, I think it's going to have some continuity to that whole development out there. You know, when you go up, you're going to see that part, you're going to see, like, especially when you drive down River's Edge and look around, well, this is going to be abutting those back streets, so they're all going to look like a neighborhood. Yeah. I mean, because the stacked ones, you know, sometimes it just looks like military barracks, you know, set up, squeeze people in, and so I like to break up myself, especially where you're putting it there. I know your challenge is going to be getting that contamination off-site, but I guess it's a good thing in the long run, you know. I mean, obviously. I know it's been an eyesore up there for a period of time now. I know there's been some proposals going up there, but nothing's really flushed through, so I think this is going to help the neighborhood as well as that whole part of the city up there, to be honest with you. You know, obviously, some of the concerns I have are just, I think, basically engineering things that could be addressed, you know. Obviously, the condition would be the AUL, have that be approved, you know. Yep. I would say, you know, like, things to work with the city engineer in regards to, you know, utility plan, the stormwater management plan, and the drainage, and obviously have the city engineer have an opportunity to review the reviews that Brian and Katie put together tonight as a result of their hard work last night.
We'll work with the city engineer,
you know,
as far as her comments
are concerned. And then the only thing, you know, stuff like, you know, is indicated by the board members, you know, somehow, you know, stripe or paint that handicap thing, so people know exactly what it is. I mean, we're all sensitive to the handicap needs, and, you know, things get worn out, people forget, unless they have somebody who's in-house, I should say. Yeah. You know, and obviously the landscaping plan, if you can work with staff on that. The snow storage, I'm satisfied if you don't have it on site, you can get it off site. And, you know, and then if we have any from the fire department, something like a letter from them. But basically, I think addressing most of those needs, I'd be in favor of it. And so I don't know any further discussion the board members would have. If not, I could put some of that in the form of a motion.
I would like to have a little further discussion on this. This question about this desire to match, to be consistent with the River's Edge development. I do not agree that this is consistent with what's in River's Edge. What we have in River's Edge are a number of 1- and 2-family homes sitting on individual lots, which had considerably more lot area per dwelling unit and lot area per building. That's why you don't have, you actually have the distance between driveways that doesn't necessitate this curve. This is very different from River's Edge. This is a multifamily suburban-style development. All of the units on one lot, a multifamily number of for the lot area per dwelling unit. and you're building in this much denser way in order to get this number of units that you need in order to make the project work. But doing it, but also splitting them up in two families, there's just so much on this lot that you've got yourself, from what I've seen tonight, a remarkable design engineer. You've given him impossible tasks to do, and it's impressive how close he has come to accomplishing them. To make that, to get this turnaround in one day with a changed design and something ready to submit to the board, that is very impressive. It is not, however, I think, a very good way for us to go about reviewing and approving designs. I think I'm not going to belabor this point now. I think we need to have a conversation at some other point about setting a limit on when materials that are going to be presented to the board for consideration at a meeting need to be in to the planning office so that there's sufficient time for them to review them. But in the same sense that it's impressive how much he was able to accomplish with such an impossible time constraint, it's impressive what he's been able to accomplish with such impossible dimensional constraints to try to get this many units onto this site, coming up with this, deliberately making the distance walked along the sidewalk longer in order to meet the ADA conditions and to very nearly manage not to violate the ADA. That was impressive. But that isn't a force of nature that those constraints that he's been forced to work within, that's not a force of nature. That's a decision made by the applicant based on the number of units that he's proposing for the lot and the setup that he's proposing to distribute those units along the lot. I am not buying the sidewalk design. I do not believe it provides adequate access. And the reason that you needed to go to such an extreme is because of the density of buildings and density of units that are being proposed on this site. There's not even a little bit of wiggle room to work with to try to make things work here. And I think it's just too much.
My only response, Mr. Boyle, is that it conforms to existing zoning in the city of Lowell. I told you why we had to get the site. This isn't the typical site because of the contamination on it. So I told you why we had to get those units. It's right in the purchase and sale agreement from day one. We did our homework before we even entered the purchase and sale agreement. So that's what we need to get it done. It's an improvement to the neighborhood. The city's going to benefit. That contamination is going to be removed. We will work with the city engineer. If there's a problem, then we'll come back to this board. But we'd like to get going forward on this.
I think there's many forces pushing against each other here. The need to fit this in, the need to fit that in, the need to accomplish this setback and this distance, the financial considerations, and it's just too much pressure. Something's got to give, and what I see giving is quality design.
Comment, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I don't disagree with the density issue, Mr. Boyle. That could be loosened up a little bit and created more green space, but I do think that in this particular case, we have a very hazardous situation up there that's approaching a public safety issue, and it's a terrible eyesore. So personally, I'm willing to overlook a little more density to get the project done and get the place cleaned up, and I think it blends beautifully with the existing housing up there. I think it'll work together very well. So that site is unique, and I think we need to take that into consideration, where we typically don't get into that cost stuff. I think here it's necessary to, so that's where I stand on it.
Any of the board members have any further comments? If not, we can entertain a motion. I'll make a motion for the approval of the site plan with the following conditions. One being that the applicant have to sign off on the AUL, the city environmental officer, that the applicant work with the city engineer to review and approve your utility plan, the stormwater management plan, the drainage and catch basin plan, and also for the city engineer to have the opportunity to respond to responses that were given by the applicant today in regards to the city engineer's conditions. Also, in regards to the handicap sidewalk, either have it striped or some type of paint or something to show out where the sidewalk for the handicap is. Also for the landscaping plan, for them to work with the DPD. Also the snow storage, if it has to, as indicated by the narrative, if it's too tight on site to be taken off site. And also to get final approval from the fire department.
I'll second the motion.
Mr.
Sure,
Chairman,
go ahead.
Can I just?
Sure. Discussion, sure.
Well, to the maker of the motion to
Yep.
to amend a few of the conditions, is on the sidewalk striping is to have a maintenance plan as well. Because again, new construction and it's in, looks great, and then 5 years down the road,
Okay.
there's no maintenance plan. It's part of the
Sure.
condo, part of the condo bylaws.
All right. So I'll amend that. Sure. Yep.
Yeah, we put a provision in the condominium documents, Sherry,
Okay.
like we did on, that's like we did on Walgreens.
And then to, because it's not clear on that guardrail, is to work with the abutter for the
yeah.
removal of the guardrail.
Sure. We can put that in under the landscaping plan, but remove, okay. We can put that in, remove, if possible, if it's in ownership with the other people, I mean, if they can do so or not. If it's part of the church ownership, they can work with them to try to. Right, okay, okay, remove guardrail, okay. If approved with the abutter, okay. Anything else, Mr. Fischett?
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think it would be a mistake for us to act on this tonight. I think there's too much new information that has come in too late. We haven't had adequate time to consider it. City staff hasn't had adequate time to consider it and give us recommendations. I don't think that we should take any action at this at all. I think we need to let a couple of weeks go by until the next meeting, let the city staff chew on what they've got, give us their recommendations, and see where we are then.
So we have a motion on the floor for approval and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 In opposition?
Nay.
Okay, so we have 4 in favor, 1 against for the site plan. So now we need a motion for the special permit. I'll make the same motion for the special permit with the same conditions as outlined on the site plan.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Nay.
Nay. So both matters carry, 4 in favor, 1 against.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much and good luck.
Night.
Thank you. Yep. We're gonna take a 5-minute quick break for the next applicant sets up.
Jerry, you're right about those big outdoor planters. Those can be a really nice landscaping decision on environments like that, like at Canal Place.
Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Attorney John Cox, 755 Dutton Street, Lowell. I represent Kang Lai Ang, trustee of Kang Realty Trust, who owns the property on Wood Street. We have applied for a site plan approval. We have been in touch with DPD, Mr. Janowitz, very kind in helping us through this process. And it's a little something about the proposal. Currently, there is a building which is about 8 years old on Wood Street, and I've got some photographs that maybe better explain exactly what we're looking at. If I could give them to the board.
Absolutely. Counselor?
Yeah.
Familiar with it, yeah.
Just that.
The right, yeah, that's the building to the right of the site.
One right on the other side of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know this.
The building you're looking at in this picture, the two-family, is also owned by the applicant, and the plan here would be to raise this building. This building's more than 75 years old. We would raise this building and extend the building that you can just see the corner of the new building, which is about 8 years old, onto this piece of property. What that would allow us to do is put an addition on the current building, as well as increase the parking from 8 spaces to 23 spaces. We would also knock down the right-of-ways on Wood Street from currently 3 to 1, which I know is something that the city is interested in, and as part of the overall plan here to try to reduce driveways. It's a plan that we think fits with the neighborhood. It's a plan that will increase the tax revenue to the city, because what we'll be doing is getting rid of an old two-family home and putting an addition onto a brand-new building. We have received comments from the city engineer as well as the DPD, and I'm prepared to go over them one by one whenever the board wishes. So if you want me to go ahead and go through those comments, I think we've addressed all of them. And Ron Close, the engineer, is here with us this evening. So why don't we start with the 20-some-odd comments from the city engineer. I believe there were...
That's one that's dated 8/26 from Leo.
Correct,
Lisa DeMayo.
yeah,
Okay,
there are
thank you.
2
Yeah.
pages of comments. I think there's 29 in all. And if you'd like, I could go through them one by one. And the first one that needs to apply for all city construction permits, obviously. The engineering office must be contacted for all site inspections as built, so to be electronic submitted. Those first 3 clearly are just, I think, housekeeping procedural things. Wood Street being paved in July of 2014. Clearly, there's a new sidewalk was put in front of this building, and as part of this proposal, we will install new sidewalks to the city code in front of the new building. So that's something that we will clearly do. Obviously, driveway permit required and trench permit required. The retaining wall, this next point, which is point number 7, or the 7th bullet, pertaining to retaining wall sketches for geosynthetic reinforcements. Ron Close, the engineer, has put together a notation for the plan. Unfortunately, we were not able to get them on the plan or get the new plans done before this evening, but I'd like to give you each a copy of the new plan pertaining to the subject that the engineer talked about in bullet number 7, if I may.
Yes, Counsel.
Excuse me.
Thank you, sir.
And this will be incorporated as part of the plan as approved. The next a bullet, existing retaining wall to be buried, the quote, existing retaining wall to be buried is on the plans. We will change the plans to say that the retaining wall will be removed. So the notation on the plan will be changed from to be buried to will be removed. Offset for paving behind the building on top of the retaining wall. The current plan does show for 5 feet of offset there, and there is some vegetation there. We do believe that we'd be able to put some sort of vegetation on that space, and I think we've talked about it with the city. Clearly, we think that there will be a sufficient space there on the plan. You can see a 5-foot offset there on the where the engineer is talking about there in the back of the behind the building. I'm sorry, there's 5 feet of offset there currently. The next one pertaining to the loam and seed shown on the top of the wall. That's the one that there is 3 to 3.5 feet of grass, and the plans do show for some vegetation. I'm sorry, I got 9 and 10 mixed up. But we think we've addressed that. Obviously, there are some notes on the plan. The next one, material on the curb on top of the retaining wall, it will be bituminous berm. If that's something that you wanted to put on the plan as a notation, we can clearly do that to take care of the engineer's concern on that one, what type of material it is. The elevation on the top of the wall, 102.5 or 102.75, there is some confusion there. Ronnie has, and we'll redo the plans. The new elevation there will be 102.75, so we'll be consistent. The next point, offset for the toe of the wall, we will have a new note on the plan showing that there'll be at least 6 inches off the property line. We think it's clear there, but if the engineer has some question on it, we will certainly take care of that question as well. The stormwater calcs, Ron, and Ron's here if you want to ask any specific questions, but we see where she's coming from in that one, and we will adjust the calcs to the correct dimensions. Trench drain, not existing. A trench drain is shown on the plan at the new driveway. So that is shown on the plan, and hopefully that would take care of that question. As far as bounds needed to be installed or reset, there are 4 iron pipes existing on the site, and if the board so wished, we could certainly put in 2 more iron pipes showing the boundaries of the extended lot, if you will. We talked about sidewalks earlier. We will install new sidewalks. Stormwater, the new trench drain, or the proposed trench drain, will pick up whatever we would need as far as the stormwater there, we feel. The engineer submission notes a stone reservoir should extend below the frost line. Ron will redo the plan to show the elevation to go below the frost line as required or requested by the engineer. And the next couple of things just seem kind of procedural again. A construction site entrance must be shown on the plans. As far as the construction site, we will use the existing driveways that are there now during construction. Location of... We believe that Ron has shown the water table. It's next location of dewatering and discharge to be shown on plans. The water table is shown on the plan as 93.20 feet And that is shown on the plan. If we need more clarification for that, we're really happy to do that. There is currently an existing underground as far as the catchment areas. There is an existing underground system which we feel has been sufficient and will be sufficient for this new construction. 500-year floodplain, well, we know that. And as far as the snow and ice, snow will not be stored on the property. Snow will be removed. So we can make a note on the plan, or it could certainly be a condition. And obviously, this disposal into the right-of-way is prohibited. Obviously, we know that. Shall I go on to DPD's questions as well? I know it's kind of been a long laundry list here, but
Sure. That's a little shorter list.
that's from Joe, dated August 12th. Only 5 of those. Location of the door for the buildings, where the handicap spaces. The front door is proposed to be at the corner of the new addition, adjacent to where the handicap spaces are shown. There are 2 handicap spaces shown, and there's kind of a walkway between them. I know that there was another note later on about the handicap space being large enough for a van accessible. And we can certainly do that. We have enough room with those 2 handicap spaces. I believe we only need 1 handicap space, but we show 2, and we can certainly have enough room to make one of them van accessible. So that would not be a problem. Second point pertains to the sidewalk, which we already talked about. Any signage will have to be approved by the city, obviously. The materials of the materials of the new building, the materials will be the same as the existing building. It will obviously be subject to city approval. And as far as whether the dental business will expand into the new space, we are not sure yet. We hope that they do, and they've been successful there. So. But we cannot tell the board, as we sit here this evening, that they will be. We certainly hope that they will be. So like I said, I know that's been a long laundry list, but I think that we have certainly tried to address each and every concern raised by both the city engineer and DPD.
Did you get the notice from the traffic engineer by any chance, Mr. Cox?
I'm sorry?
Did you get the one from the traffic engineer? One comment on that, about, from Eric Eby. Did you get that one?
Is that the one pertaining to the handicap space?
Let's see. It says, space number 23 at the end of
Yes.
the parking row has the dumpster behind it and vegetation next to it. It'd be very difficult to back out of the space. Then it goes on and says, yeah, one of the HP spaces must be van accessible. So I'm just curious if Bonnie could address, how parking, space number 3 at the end of, will have a
Right.
problem with the dumpster.
Yeah, and I believe the dumpster is some 20 some odd feet. 22 feet behind space number 20.
That could be set back even further.
Yeah.
There's room to go put it back?
There's a whole back of the building there.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that was the comment he had a problem with that one parking space,
Right,
you know,
right, yep.
because of the dumpster being there.
That's a good solution, just push it back.
All right. Anything else further, Mr. Cox?
Nope, I don't believe so at this point.
All right.
Happy to answer any questions you may have, obviously.
All right, at this point in time, does anybody here want to speak in favor of the project? Anybody in favor? In favor? In favor? Okay. Anybody here in opposition? Anybody against?
I just have a couple of
Sure, just come to the microphone, please, state your name and address if you would.
Yes, my name is Elaine Cimarellis, and I own the property right next to the two-family home that would be demolished. That would be 40 42, 44A.
So looking here, you'd be over here?
And 44B. I can't see that far. Do you
Yeah.
have that picture?
Yeah, so the, sure.
You have
Mr.
that
Cox, you want to give me this picture? Yeah. So that two-family here, you're the house to the right.
Right here, this
Sure.
Yes, the blue one.
Okay,
Very good.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
Correct. So they have a retaining wall now next to the dental office. That would be removed. They would demolish the next house. And I'm understanding to put a retaining wall next to my property, correct? Okay. And I would like to see some kind of, maybe, if this goes through, fencing on top of the wall. Some nice, because that's going to be very close to my property, and I have 4 tenants in there that I don't want to be able to, have them, it'll be harder to rent, I'm sure, if they have to look over and see rows and rows of cars. My other concern is water. We get water in our basement continually, so I'm not sure if the dental office sits higher, so I'm not sure they're going to level it all. I'm a little concerned about the water, because I believe this two-family here, the gray one, gets their share of water as well. I know we're always floating when the water comes. I just don't want more water. If it's all hot top there, then it probably will seep into mine, because mine's hot topped as well, so there'll be no seepage. The other concern I have is the dumpster. Where is the dumpster set to be right this moment? I would not like to have it, of course, in my corner next to my property, as they do smell horrifically. And when my tenants go down there to park their car, I would like to see maybe the dumpster be considered on the dental. So let's just say to the left of the project versus the right of the project, so we don't have to see it or deal with it or smell it. So that's right up against, is that my wall?
No, the wall will be here.
Okay, so this is my wall, and these, all the cars are gonna park right up against my wall, correct?
Yep.
And are these trees?
no, go ahead. You can answer a question, I can hear you from here. That's all right.
I'm just wondering if on there, if I can just see this again, are these like bushes,
Shrubs,
shrubs?
right, the trees these are the trees.
Okay, so,
These will
oh,
be
this is
shrubs.
me. That's me. So this is my property right here.
Right.
So, and this is the home, so there's not a lot of space between there. It's gonna almost become an alleyway on my property, right? So if they were to put a fence up maybe on this wall, it would make it so we don't have to kind of view the cars and stuff.
Right, well, I can certainly discuss that
Yeah,
with the,
and that's what I'm
client,
saying, these are
but
questions,
it's-
not
It is fenced along the back, and I think the intent was,
some kind of something there. Preferably not, chain link to see through. I would like something maybe with,
again, discussed with the city and the client.
We can do a
Okay.
fence.
yeah, okay. And again, if the proposal goes through, I would also like to know, is there going to be any access out the back at all?
None at all.
Because as you all know, that traffic on Wood Street is horrific. My tenants really have a hard time getting out, so does everybody else, the dental people as well.
Zoning prohibited it. Even on the next project up,
Yeah, with
Mr.
the bridge and everything, it's just, and going from, 8 to 23 is going to mean a lot more parking, which they need, and that's wonderful. It's just going to make a lot more onto the little Wood Street that it is versus, well, there's nothing, they can't go out back because it's
First of all,
owned by homes,
right,
correct?
They don't own anything.
Correct.
And also, the board on the abutting project for Mr. Karafat's is prohibited going on to
Well,
Columbia Street.
they'd have to buy up some of this to cut through there. You can't cut through, right?
Prohibited anyways
Really?
by the board.
Okay, so I guess.
That was here before, we had a project on this that came before us, I would say, at least 6 times.
This has?
No,
Oh,
the other project up further towards Wood Street.
Yep.
And with the backyards here, and the applicant came in and worked with the neighbors on Columbia Street, and kept continuing the hearing to satisfy everybody on Columbia Street, so they came in at least 6 times, till everybody's in agreement.
Okay, so.
I say at least 6 times.
Yep, so this would be nice with, and these little shrubs will be on a small grassy area behind the cars, in front of the cars, so to speak, correct?
Right.
Oh, there's a little bug, that's,
The board was just presented with this. Here's the wall, and this is a grass there. This is where the pavement starts. It says bituminous berm. There's a small
Okay, yeah.
2.5 to 3 foot.
so there's a little space they're leaving, hopefully to absorb water.
And this wall is batted back.
Because
As it goes up, it moves
I'm all hot-topped and have a little grass in the back. They're all hot, well, will be all hot-topped, so that water is gonna be like, I think, no place to go. So is that all being worked out
Right,
and
there's a
Drain.
trench drain here. I'm just showing her the,
that's in front of the property, correct?
that's the entrance. There's a trench drain there. This is a pervious material. It drains down into that and gets into the ground.
Okay.
Anyways, this had like less than a 5-minute perk test.
So porous, but
The
mine,
water table is.
mine isn't, I don't think. Mine's the old, floating in the puddles. And is there enough, he has 2, one here and one here, doesn't he have 2?
He had 2 entrances.
Oh, they're gonna close one?
After discussion with the city, it's gonna turn into a 1 entrance.
It is.
project. There would have been 3 entrances, one existing at the current home and the 2 on site. After discussion with the city, we brought the 1 entrance down to
Because
the
they,
most southerly part.
because they believe, probably that the cars won't be all just trying to get in and out every which way, right? They're not gonna get in and out, nobody
It's
lets,
tough, yeah.
nobody lets you out there, you have to
No.
edge.
Right.
They did just put all beautiful brand-new sidewalks in there.
Yep, and then intent is to, if
Will
we do
remain.
anything in the street, it'll be saw cut and replaced, and
Yeah.
the sidewalks would.
I'm sure they're not gonna rip up the new sidewalks and leave them like that. I think the city would be down there immediately. 1 entrance, you don't have to have 2 by law to, in case of, I don't know, fire trucks having to get in or out, or,
Well, basically on that, the fire department could just service it right from the street.
okay?
They can
yeah,
pull right up front.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And if it
my,
was, more landlocked, then they'd have another access, but where it's right accessible right on Wood Street now, same like across the street where all the market basket and all that stuff is right there. There's plenty of access right from the street in the parking lot, so you don't have to come in from the rear.
all right, God bless Market Basket. My tenant said if they don't stop blowing the horns, we're gonna have to move. So the good news is that's over.
So you like the quiet noise for 6 weeks? I mean, the quiet part of it?
I said, there's nothing I can do. They're like 6 in the morning, they're blowing horns. I'm sure the dental office had it all day, too. Everything seems, fine. I would like to see, maybe some kind of fencing there so that we don't have to view.
I understand, sure.
I mean, I don't live there personally, but I know the tenants are already saying stuff like what's going to happen with.
Sure.
And the dumpster. That's a main, I'd love to see that dumpster be kind of on this end versus
So it's gonna be
mine.
anyways. He's gonna move it?
Because I don't know if you realize they get kind of, you know.
Ron, could you describe how you're gonna enclose that so they won't be able to see it? And,
Oops, did he say that again?
I mean, that'll be up to
The dumpster itself?
yeah, you show here a concrete pad with a little fencing around it, but
Yeah,
I
this
think
is
with
us, so the
that,
dumpster's
let us,
fairly
if you can
close.
Describe what you're gonna do there.
Right, they use the
Beneficial.
chain link with either the slats in them or now the new PVC plastic fence.
Right, so what you won't be able to see.
Whatever the client decides, I guess, but
Yeah?
you won't be able to see it.
Well, no,
And
but
we could set that back if there's an issue with the parking number 23, parking space 23.
have a little room to go
We
back.
could offset that back a little bit
Yeah.
further. We have it paved back the length of the building, the rest of that is gravel.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
we could move it back to where the trees are, put the pad at the back of the new proposed building. And so you'd have that space to easily turn around.
Okay. And again, like I said, I'm not concerned on how far back it is. My concern is this is my, my cars park here, across my back. So from there to there, you know, when they get full, they smell.
Mhm.
They do smell, and I don't want these people, my 4 families, to have to open their windows and get the downwind, you know, the crosswind from this. I would love to see if you could kind of move that anywhere more. I'd love it right down there in that corner, as far away from my property as could be. But again, you know, maybe we can talk about that a little. And sometimes they overflow, you know, there's too much stuff, and it's coming out the doors and the tops, and, they can't just put out their trash to the city? No, huh? Because it's a building? Okay, so maybe that could be looked at a little more, or even down a little,
We're definitely
a little further.
considering a move, and I'll talk to the client.
Yep, no problem.
See what they want to do, and also the trash people, and what would
Yep.
accommodate them, yeah.
And just something here maybe with, you know, something that's attractive, not
Again,
necessarily
I believe
chain
the
link.
client said he'd do something with the plan.
Okay, fine with me.
Thank you.
So will we get to see this redone a little bit before it's a go, or no?
What they'd have to do is, depending on how we vote this evening, is any recommendations we'd make, they'd have to make any changes to the plans that's recommended by the board.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
thank
thank you. Anybody else want to speak in regards to the project? Anyone else? Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, this time I'll ask, any of the planning board members have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure, Mr. Boyle?
The, you note here that under the zoning, 5 trees are required. I see the 3 shade trees that are sort of near the front. Are you counting the arborvitae as your trees? Because I see 3 shade trees and a bunch of arborvitae.
And what's the question, sir?
There's a note on here that you're required to have 5 trees.
Okay, 5 trees.
Yep. Are you counting the arborvitaes as your trees?
We have 1, 2, 3.
See, I see those 3.
Yeah, but we can add, yeah, we were gonna put some coniferous trees in there, but we can add some more trees.
Oh, that's excellent to hear that. That was my second question. The recommendation
I think
from...
we're actually going to be seeking a variance from the zoning board pertaining to the number of trees. I know that's on the plan, that's something that we had, that we will be seeking from the ZBA.
The, on the comments from the DPD, their item number 2, board may wish to consider requiring the applicant to install a new sidewalk and street trees along the frontage, as was done at 12 Wood Street. Would that be something you would consider doing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question, Mr. Boyle.
Their DPD recommendation number 2 is, the board may wish to consider requiring the applicant to install a new sidewalk and street trees along their frontage. When I was looking, looking at the plan, spaces number 1 through 10, I noticed the backout area, it's 16 feet up at the top, up on the north side, and then gets wider as you go down to the bottom. You also have, it looks like at the back of the sidewalk am I reading this correctly? There is a small vegetated buffer in between your parking lot and the city sidewalk? Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yes, there is a buffer,
Okay.
approximately 3 to 4 feet.
Approximately 3 to 4 feet. What I was noticing is your backup area between the parking spaces is 16 feet wide at the top and then gets wider and wider and wider as you go south. So as you come south, it seems to me it might be possible to widen that buffer and widen it sufficiently to where you could put in your couple of trees.
Again, I think that's going to consist of the, one of the variants we're going to be requesting from the ZBA pertaining to that back, if you see the note number 2 on the top of the
I
plan.
do see that.
landscaping variance from 10 to feet buffer requested, and the trees along the residential zoning. So I believe that that's going to be covered in what we're going for and before the zoning board of appeals. I think that's what we discussed with the city, but.
Okay. Joe?
If I may, Mr. Boyle, the variance that's being referenced, that's actually pertaining to the arborvitae areas. Typically, in those areas there where it's adjacent to residential properties, there is where you would have that requirement for 10 feet, where right now it's being shown as 5 feet. The street trees comment is something that's not exactly entirely covered by the zoning section that you're referring to. That's just referring to the area adjacent to the residential properties. The street trees is something different. It's not dealing with that section of the zoning ordinance.
Right, you aren't required to have a 10-foot buffer between the public sidewalk and your parking lot. Your width of, there'd be no need for zoning variance there, is what he's saying. The zoning variance you need to file is for where you've got your arborvitae, where you've got your conifers just adjacent to these residential properties.
We can certainly, I mean, we would certainly deal with the city as far as, what they're looking for that type of vegetation. Clearly that's not, I don't think that's a major issue on our part,
Okay, I'm sure the board can guess my feelings on this matter. I don't think that we should back off on the street trees. I think we should require those 2 more trees, and I think it, along the back of the sidewalk, and given the way that backup area gets wider and wider as you go south, I think that it would be relatively easy for the applicant to get those two more trees in there.
If I could, Mr. Boyle, just to make your point, and forgive my pictures, I did take a picture of where the Indian basket is, the development on the corner. If you can see, I tried to circle. I think this is what the DPD was just for the streetscape. So when you're looking down Wood Street, just to add some trees right in this area, right here. So, and again, to Joe's comments, the variance is relative to this area here. We're just saying, from a streetscapes perspective, trying to show some consistency. This is what we required at that project, and so just to follow that down the street, adding 2 more trees really would meet that.
Anywhere like in here, right, Joe?
Right, and if instead of this line coming straight, where you have a little bit of extra width here, maybe you bump this out a little bit here, and there's your planting area.
And that's just to increase the survivability rate of the trees. Yep. No, and I figured that would. Yeah.
Down Wood Street here. That won't be, I'm sure that will not be a problem.
Okay. The other comment I have is I think that the engineer's proposal here to push that dumpster further north behind the building, I think that's very good too. There's all sorts of reasons that's a good idea. Makes your dumpster less visible from the street. And the other thing, this concern about space number 23, and I'd say 22 as well. If you look at spaces 11 through 21, if somebody's pulled in forward into those, they can pull back and then turn back up towards the back of the property and then pull straight out. Those 23 and 22 as well, they don't really have the opportunity to do that. But if you push that dumpster further behind the building, they're going to have a lot more space to just pull straight back, and that'll make it a lot easier for them. Thought that was a very good idea. And finally, I see the notes for the tree species for the conifers. What are you proposing for those shade trees?
We'd talk to the city.
Okay, whatever this is, yeah.
That's what we did on the abutting project.
Yep.
Before they planted in, the contract at the time went down and saw the city. And they agreed on it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's what I had.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Bob, anything?
The only comments I'll reiterate, in fact, I had drawn it on my plan to widen the landscape strip along the street down toward the entrance, so you could put a couple of more trees in there. And, you know, the concrete, the dumpster, that's not rocket science, and I think the project is good, as long as the building matches, the addition matches the existing building. I have no problem with this at all.
Thank you. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As well, I think we've solved the issue of the street trees, so I think that'll work. And to Mrs. Cimarellis's concern, my back of the napkin math here, just looking at the dumpster, based on where the existing location is, it's just about 50 feet from your property line, and even as shown here, it's about 40 feet from the property line. We push it back, which the applicant is proposing, it's probably going to be back even a little bit further from your property line than what it sits right now. So I think that's, I think that's a win situation all the way around. Petitioner indicated they'd be willing to work with putting a fence above the retaining wall, plus with the plantings, I think that'll look attractive. I think it's in a regional retail area. This is what we're trying to see that area develop, as noted in the master plan, as noted in by the application. And again, Mr. Close, I forgot, I was just saying, Mr. Chairman, you were the engineer on that project at the, so you have still nightmares about that, I would imagine. But there was a lot of work that went into that to come up with the look that we have for the streetscape, and that's why we want to keep that consistency going down Wood Street with the trees. And obviously, the concern was to buffer Columbia Street as much as possible, and this is I think we're achieving that with this development as well, so I'm fine with what the proposal here. One question we needed a clarification from here from the engineer's comments regarding the sidewalk. It's Joe, and if you could clarify this, it says sidewalks were just recently rebuilt, July 2013. Permits to excavate in the sidewalk area will not be issued for 5 years. Does that mean the petitioner cannot do anything with the sidewalk?
Generally speaking, the engineering office won't issue a street opening permit once the street has been repaved for 5 years. Given that there is an appeals process that one can go through to be able to get a street opening permit, but as a general standard, a street opening permit will not be issued the first go-round.
So they will get rejected, and then they will have to appeal
Yes,
it, and then
correct.
that would be the process to go through.
And then that'll take 5 years.
Okay.
So we should make that a condition then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Rich, anything further?
No, I'm in favor of the project. I'd just like to see the dumpster move back, that's all.
Okay. So the only problem, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I think, you have to work with getting those sidewalks in, whatever that process is, so you have to, I mean, I know you're willing to put the sidewalk in, but I guess you still have to get permission to do so, and then whatever. So obviously, if that was made a condition, you'd have any problems with that, right?
Nope.
Okay, all right. The only other thing I would maybe recommend is that when you had that the city engineer have the opportunity to review your retaining wall, Mr. Close? That way, hopefully, they can sign off on it.
Resubmit the shelves.
Yeah, I mean, that way they have a chance, I know you just gave it to us tonight, so I'm sure they didn't have a chance to look at that. So as a condition, maybe have the city engineer look at them, which was your response to the comment of the retaining wall, okay. Correct. So, I know you didn't take the snow off site, but, do you have any spot where we would store temporarily, like in one of the, usually like you try to put it in one of the small, pocket spots temporarily while you build it up until the other truck comes in and take it off, I imagine? Right, Lonnie, I mean, if they're gonna take it off site, you're usually gonna pull it into one or two of the parking spots and then
Snow, yeah.
and then take it off, right?
Yes.
Right, they have a system now where.
Yeah, because I mean, you gotta pile it up first and then remove it, okay. So you
But it'll be removed immediately. It
yeah.
will not be piled.
So I mean, what you do is usually you stack it on a couple of the parking spots in the very, and then they come in and take it off, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other further questions, or?
Actually, I did have one.
Sure, go ahead, Joe.
How high is this retaining wall?
Approximately 5 feet.
Okay, and is that a uniform height, or it goes from,
Well,
What?
goes from like 2 feet, foot to 2 feet. beginning, and then maybe 4 to 5 feet at the rear.
Okay, oh, okay.
Any further questions? If not, what's the wish of the board?
99 foot. I'll take that back, I'm sorry. 9946 to 102, approximately 3 feet at the rear wall.
So 3 feet is the maximum?
Pardon me?
So approximately 3 feet would be the maximum height?
Yeah, 9946 is the low part. 102, we just confirmed 75.
Okay.
So that's approximately 3.2 feet.
Okay.
But as you go down, up towards like Middlesex Street, I don't think it drops any more than another foot or so.
Okay.
But there's an existing wall up there that we gotta match into.
Okay.
3 to 4 feet in the rear yard, and from 0 to 3 feet going down that side yard, abutting Semarellis.
Okay. And finally, just for my own edification, if you hadn't used the porous concrete, you would have needed to install a drainage system, storm drains and pipes and everything. Is this going to be less expensive to do with the porous concrete than installing a drainage system, or about the same? More expensive?
It would have been easier to put in, we removed a catch basin because of the building. In the building out, there was a catch basin.
Okay.
In lieu of that, we put in the trench drain at the driveway itself.
Okay.
So any water coming off sheds is pitched down to that trench drain that moves into an existing sedimentation basin, takes all the sediments out, et cetera, and then goes into an underground, existing underground system, which is approximately, if I remember correctly, 20 by 40, something like a leach field. And I believe this one had an overflow that went into the city system. It was that long ago that it was done. That's not allowed anymore. But now, in addition to that, we have stone, 6 inches of stone under with porous pavement over. It drops into the stone, holds it there for a period of time. That's all in the notes. And then infiltrates into the ground. And like I said, we got approximately a 5-minute rate at the time. And this is all sand from the riverbank back up to the other Wood Street project that Kazanjian's doing.
Right.
You go by there, you'll see nothing but sand.
Right, right.
So the water table was down about 9 feet here. That's why dewatering is not necessary. We're only going to be cutting down the most 4 to 5 feet. It would be 4 to 5 feet above water table. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I'm all set.
You're welcome, Mr. Wall. Anyone want to make a recommendation or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the site plan approval based upon the following conditions. The applicant to obtain a sidewalk permit, the applicant to install fencing above the retaining wall, the subject to final review and approval by the city engineer for the items addressed and the memo of
Review the retaining wall.
yeah, of
August 26th.
August 26th, specifically addressing as well the revision to the retaining wall, the snow to be removed from the site, and the buffer zone along Wood Street to be modified to accommodate street trees, subject to final approval by DPD, and for signage to be approved, final signage to be approved by DPD.
The dumpster.
Yes, thank you. And the dumpster to be set back further behind the building with appropriate screening to accommodate the concerns expressed by the city engineer relative to parking spot 23, and to provide appropriate screening from the abutters.
I'll second that.
Okay. We got a motions made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the chair votes yes. The site plan is approved. 5 in favor, none against.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Need your pictures back, Mr. Cox? Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Anything before. I know sometimes it. Is it? I know, it just, I want to say it was over 2 years. Yeah. It was 2 years.
I forgot he was the engineer.
But I mean, that thing lasted over I'd say two and a half years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Couldn't be any more consistent, though, if there.
Okay, moving along, our next public hearing is for site plan at 1085 Barnum Ave. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to all interested persons relative to the application by Duville Leadership Solutions seeking site plan review approval for a proposed project located at the above address. The applicant has proposed an approximate 13,321 square foot building to be used as daytime elderly care service with associated drop-off areas, parking, utilities, and a patio area of 327 square feet of land as part of the Duville Senior Care Facility. The proposed project is located in the suburban single-family zoning district and requires site plan review from the planning board under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, just before we hear a hearing on this, I will be abstaining from this issue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bichette.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Naomi Prendergast. I'm the president and CEO of Duville Life and Wellness Community, which I'm sure you all know is a Catholic healthcare organization, nonprofit, very mission-based, and was sponsored by the Sisters of Charity of Ottawa. I know we've had conversations before, so I thank you very much for inviting us back. We're here tonight to speak about a project that we're very excited about. It would be on our campus, as was just described, to the rear of our campus, a single-story, approximately 13,000 square foot building that would be built for a tenant on our campus. The tenant is also a nonprofit healthcare organization, Fallon Health. And Fallon is going to be expanding its senior care services in the Lowell area. They are eager to share more information once federal and state approvals are in place. But this site would be on our campus, and they would be our tenant in a long-term relationship. Now, this is non-residential during business hours, and the elders who would be coming onto the campus to be served by these services would be arriving in vans. And I think it's important to note that because we know that traffic is always a concern in the neighborhood. The peak hours would be approximately between 10 a.m. and 2 to 2:30 p.m. There would be at any given time about 30 staff members. There would be ample parking for the staff. And actually, all of those arrivals are going to be staggered in terms of timing, but with those core hours being more towards the middle of the day and people arriving in the vans. At this point, what I'd like to do is to invite our architect, John Zikowitz, to give a little bit more information.
Thank you. My name is John Zikwitz. I'm an architect with the Giorgio Associates located in Boston, Mass. As Naomi mentioned, the floor plan is approximately 13,000 square feet, rectangular in shape, single-story building. On center entrance, along the front right and the front right edge are primarily staff support areas, office spaces, conference rooms, things like that. Then to the immediate right of the center, you have a section of exam rooms. Thank you. Section of exam rooms. Along the top, some support spaces, library, hair salon, things like that. And then the primary spaces, dining and activity across the top and the bottom with rehab wellness space in the center. So your primary support areas, primary activity areas are on the left side, staff support on the right. Center entrance, a terrace in the back, and then another small terrace here on the side of the building. The exterior concept that was submitted earlier. Again, one-story building, sloped roof to fit in with the aesthetic of the campus that's already there at Duville. Materials will be matching up with the supportive care building that's currently under construction and will relate to the other buildings on campus. The center entrance, sloped roof and a skylight in the middle over the center area. That's kind of an element that Fallon likes to have in all their buildings. They like to bring a lot of natural light into the center of their building. Then the last submission here is just the exterior rendering of the building showing the materials, the horizontal banding at the top and the bottom, the sloped roof, center entrance, and the skylight. Any questions on the architecture? Or do we wait till the end?
No. Anybody have questions for John? No?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, John Noonan with Noonan McDowell with the Land Surveyors and Civil Engineers. Earlier this year, we were before you for a site plan approval to construct the assisted living complex. So just as a quick recap as to where we are on the property, Duville Senior Care is located in these buildings here. We have the TCU, which was constructed a few years ago, and our entrance road comes around the back side. So the lot that we're working with is the lot back here. And this is the parcel we had previously approved the assisted living. So as we come in from the main road, Rodham Ave, and up around past the TCU, we had the complex which you approved and our parking lot to the rear. What we're proposing to do is to construct off the existing or previously approved parking lot an access aisle, and then the 13,000 square foot building. So that's what's proposed. Prior to that, our grading had ended outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. With this change, we do have to, or did file with the Conservation Commission, and we're before them now for work within the buffer zone. The proposed parking for this will come in off our road, go to the right, come to the drive-up area, and then exit out in the same fashion. So that will be the entrance operation for the traffic. We increased the parking area to the west in this location to provide some additional parking to meet the tenants' needs. And that was the only change in the configuration of this previously approved parking area. The drainage that was previously approved was under the parking lot. We have one system in here for the roof drainage that was increased to collect runoff from this roof. The changing increase in the parking lot also goes to the same leaching system that was previously approved for the site and that was slightly enlarged to accommodate the proposed increase in the paving area. This plan outlines the roof area and the site area for leaching, for both leaching areas. Now, the site also needed sewer and water, so we had a water stub over here. We're bringing the water up through, and it goes to the utility room for both fire protection and domestic service. We have a hydrant located right here for fire protection, hook up to the Siamese location for the building, which will be in this area. Sewer is coming from an existing sewer manhole that we have up through, along parallel with the water, but 10 feet away, and then we'll come into the building at this location. So the building will be serviced with both of those from there. Gas ends at this location, so we're bringing our gas main up through and coming in at this location of the utility room. And the same route will pretty much follow to these utility poles for our underground, for telephone, cable, and the other communications and power needs. So that basically outlines what's happening for both the sewer and the water. After this plan was submitted and we had our first meetings and review with the city department, I think 2 weeks ago, we got the comments back and we made some changes based on their recommendations. Those recommendations were to add turnouts at the ends of these dead-end parking areas. They are short, but they felt it would be prudent to have that, so we did make those changes. The fire department wished to have a 20-foot wide access aisle rather than the 17, which was originally proposed. So we increased that by 3 feet and shifted the building and the walkways back 3 feet to accommodate the 20 feet. And we also made sure that we had turning movements coming through here that were acceptable for ladder 3 and engine 3, so that there wouldn't be a problem with them making those motions. So there was a question raised. We measured the vehicles, ran it through the CAD operation for turning operations, and turned that in for review to the city. The other concern public health brought up is that even though it is proposed for this new building to be serviced by the existing Duville facilities for both trash and food, that if there were a need, where would our dumpster go? So they requested that we add a future dumpster area. So we did add a future dumpster area right here. And we're not proposing to use it, but we do have something shown on the plan where one could go if it was necessary. The Conservation Commission had concerns. They really didn't want us to do any grading within the 50-foot area of the buffer zone to the BBW. So what we proposed to do was, on this corner here, rather than having a 2 or 3 to 1 slope, we're going to go to a 1 to 1 placed rock slope, so we can keep any area within the 0 to 50 undisturbed. So that was a change that we're proposing right along this area here where our patio is. So we pulled our activity back out of that location. And I think that probably summarizes the proposed project and the changes that we've done to date.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does anybody here else want to speak in regards to the project? Anybody in favor? In favor? Favor? All right. Anybody in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Any questions from the board members? I mean, we received your comments. It seems like you worked with staff. Joe, any comments from staff? I know it seems like they had comments, they fixed comments that staff had, so it sounds like staff's pretty satisfied at this point, would you say?
Yeah, we have no other comments at this time, Mr. Chairman. They've addressed a number of items that were brought up previously by different city departments, so we have no other comments at this time.
And I know when I talked to you earlier in the day, we didn't have a direct letter from the fire staff, from the fire department, but you said staff had spoke with them and they were satisfied, and John told us this
That's correct.
So that meets that criteria for us.
That's correct, right?
Right. Any questions? No? Joe or Bob? No? Okay, so all we have is, tonight, it's just here for site plan. So, what's the recommendation of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for site plan approval.
Motion made for approval of the site plan?
Second.
seconded by Mr. Malovich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. So site plan's approved as 4 in favor, and none against, and 1 abstained. Good luck and thank you. Sorry for
Thank
keeping
you
a
so
little late,
much.
but
Good evening.
we got out here faster than we thought we would, believe me, with 5
Thank
public
you.
hearings on. Thank you.
Are you almost done? That was my question. They were always simple.
Yeah, that was.
Do we have any correspondences from any of the board members for being on any of the other boards? Okay, nothing from historic, obviously.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just say that the NEMCOG annual meeting is October 15th, and it's going to be at 4 Oaks and Dracut. So I'm sure some
Good choice.
formal invitations will be going out, but again, that's October 15th.
Joe, any comments from staff, or? I know you said we have something off next public hearing for a,
Yeah, we have one public hearing for the next meeting. It's at 175 Old Canal Drive. They're proposing a new cell tower over there. There's actually a cell tower location that was approved back in 2006, but it never went forward at that point, and now cell carrier Verizon is looking to actually have a tower over off of Old Canal Drive. So that'll be coming before you. Did talk to another individual today who's going to be looking to bring a pre-application in front of the board at the next meeting. It's for 21 Nottingham Street. The board may recall that there used to be a mill building over there. It was demolished probably about 2 years ago at this point. The development proposal that they're looking to have over there is for a Family Dollar. So they're looking to have a pre-application with the board at the next meeting as well.
That's not from Chelmsford, where shop at.
Yes, that area.
I only have 2 comments. One, I know in September we do our annual meetings where we do our election of officers, so I asked Joe if we can put that on the agenda for next meeting. One of the other questions I had, I talked to Joe briefly about it, is when we go out and visit some of these sites, some of the applicants do put the, as required by our site plan review and things, they put the copy of the site plan on the site, and some of them don't. You know, and the more you go there, some you see, some you don't. So I was suggesting that if we could be having them put a copy in our packet showing where they put that on site, showing that the site plan, then, you know, and when the public hearing is, because some applicants do and some don't. And, you know, we can discuss this next meeting. I just wanted to throw it out tonight and give it some thought. Because if they come in, you know, and we say, okay, well, you didn't meet this criteria, we don't want to go forward tonight, you know, it could hurt the applicant, but then again, it could hurt the people who are the public who show up for the public hearing, who can't make it the next time. So are we penalizing the applicant or are we penalizing the public? And I said, you know, they can put the requirement in and give us the packet, and then just go and take a picture, and they submit it and give us an email later. So everybody's held to the same standard by putting that thing on the site. Plus, when you're out looking at sites, and sometime when you have a vacant lot or something else, it's easy to find that site. I mean, like, for example, Market Street tonight. I mean, you could walk around there all night and not find that site. I mean, you know, and so, and when I was down there looking around, I'm like, I think it's this one, but I'm not sure. So if we can try to, you know, we can discuss that at the next meeting, how we want to enforce that, but I just mentioned to Joe when we were on the phone today, just touching base with tonight's meeting. So I think, you know, some people do a very good job, like when they did it on Western Ave. And, you know, it was right there, you went, you found it, even though it was a vacant spot, you knew exactly where it was, and it was helpful.
It would have been difficult because it was, the
Yeah,
spot was hard.
and you know, when some people adhere to it, and some people don't, so maybe we can discuss that next meeting, whether, how we want to address that meeting. And the other thing I thought we could address is, if we want to limit how many public hearings we have on a certain night. I mean, tonight I was very surprised that we finished up by 9:30, and we had 5 public hearings on.
Yeah, that was.
I thought we'd be here, I mean, we've been here at 9:30 before for one public hearing, I mean, and it's hard to, like, Jerry and I discussed it prior to the meeting just briefly, like, you know, the city council has a 10 o'clock cutoff period. It's time to give a complete cutoff period of, say if they sat here all night for Duville and hit 10 o'clock, and we told them they have to come back, you know? And some projects we know are gonna take several hours, like when we did Lowe's, you know, that project, we the zoning board of appeals did that in 2 to 3 meetings. We did it in one night, and we did it in 3 hours, and I want to guess it was 3.5 to 3 hours and 45 minutes. So we went off at 6:30, and we finished almost at 11. But I think that was, we approved that was, if my memory serves me correctly, was 36 to 38 conditions. So, I mean, we went through a lot that night, but we kept chipping away at it instead of coming back again. Because a lot of things that happen, and is sometimes when we do the public hearing, you continue the next public hearing, the same speakers want to get up and speak over again and say the exact same thing. And that's why when we do continue on, I try to emphasize to the public, you know, I'd like to hear from the people who haven't been heard yet, and does somebody else have anything new to say, because it's like, you know, me being a lawyer and working in the court system, it's like a trial. We don't start over if you continue the case to the following day if you start. You know, you don't call the same witness and ask them the same question. Some lawyers try that, but I just stop them from doing that. But so just a couple of suggestions, so if we want to try to amend anything, just something to think over, and we can bring it up the next meeting. But just a couple of thoughts I had, you know, and how we want to address the public hearings, you know, whether, you know, put a limit on it, or look at one and say, you know, we know this one's going to go. I know staff gets a pretty good idea by how many people are calling their office, how many people come in and look at the plans, you know, so somehow to put some type of time requirement on the meetings. I mean, it's one thing for us to sit here, but I think it's, the difficulty is for the public, you know, and to have people sit through, you know, 4 or 5 hours to finally be heard. And then sometimes the end of the night, it's, you know, it's late, and you're trying to rush your project through. It doesn't get the due consideration that we might think of, or we're not as sharp as we were when we started the meeting at 6:30. You might forget something, or it slides by because your concentration level is as high as it is earlier. So I just thought if we can address some of those things next meeting, I just wanted to bring them out and see what people's ideas are, think them over, and, you know, throw the ideas around. So those are the only comments I have, so.
I would like this board to, as I was making reference to earlier, talk about late arriving information. Should we put that on that agenda for when we're doing the housekeeping at the next meeting?
Yeah, you can't, yeah, we can do that. I have two concerns I have on that. One, if they come in with complete new plans, you know, then, you know, continue right off the bat. If they come in and correct the suggestions that were given by staff and then give us the plan, I don't have a problem with that, myself. Because now,
Don't either.
you know, because now, and you know what? It's nicer to see it on the plan when they're presented at the night, you know, like staff says, change parking spot 17, they come in, we made those changes. So, because we know what the concerns are by staff, and if they've gone ahead and worked to change those, I don't have a problem with that plan come in. But if they come in with a plan that staff hasn't seen, then I don't think we should entertain it. Because it's not fair to us, and it's not fair to staff, you know? So, I mean, we can throw that around and see what people think next meeting, but.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, they make corrections, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, seems to me, though, that there might be gray area in there.
Yeah.
Making a change, addressing, well, what kind of change, what have they done to address it, and how big is that?
I mean, but, you know, the basic little one, move the dumpster, eliminate parking spot number 7, put treescape here, stuff like that, you know, which, you know, curb cutting, right away, snow removal. Then they say, okay, we had it, but we didn't put it on plan, now we showed it. I mean, those are good things.
I just go to the charter school, and they came in that evening, and we received that afternoon, the
Yeah.
traffic study.
Oh, yeah,
A
that was-
300-page traffic study.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, and we had requested that.
peer review.
Peer review.
Yep.
And that was given to us the afternoon of the meeting, and obviously, matter of fact, and we continued it for
Right,
that
yeah,
particular reason.
absolutely,
That
yeah.
was, you know,
That was
wasn't
just too
appropriate.
big, because that was a big issue in that
Yeah,
project.
you couldn't digest that in an afternoon.
And even the city engineer, the city traffic engineer, would have a hard time to digest that and give us feedback within a couple of days. And that's why usually when we, you know, address something like that and ask for continuance, can you have that, all that information to staff by this certain date? And if they say, yeah, we say, well, if you didn't get by that date, then if you come back, then we're gonna continue it again. You know, and some say they will, they don't, but, and then again, you know, hopefully that doesn't fall on the burden of the people coming back as well.
And again, that's a valid point you have. I guess if
Yeah.
it comes to, at what point do we feel that that's, it's that tipping point, I guess,
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
discussion.
But if it's just, you know, to put comments back on, you know, I'll say, you know, this is missing on the thing, so, yeah, so we can discuss that as well, I think. But I think there's just a couple of things I want to bring out so we can, you know, throw those around next meeting, so.
You know, when I was working in Westford, the ZBA and the planning board had rules that the packet was mailed out I don't remember how many days it was before the meeting, 7 days before the meeting or something, and anything that wasn't there in time to go in the packet was not presented to the board for that meeting, before that meeting.
Yeah, a lot of
If they
cities,
had something else that they wanted presented, they thought that they thought the board needed to see before they started consideration, then the applicant would ask for a continuance, because the board would not consider that information.
a lot of cities and towns do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And where we've got this great planning staff that looks at this, I really like them to at least have the opportunity to take a look at something and tell us what they think, and have it not just be, the applicant has this information, what do we on the board think? Let's, take advantage of the assets we got. And one final consideration, Bob might be familiar with this, it often falls on the shoulders of the staff to determine, is something going to be considered and brought before the board and discussed, and a recommendation given, or are they going to say, we need more time to review this? And where developers and developers' attorneys often are often connected with City Hall, with officials in City Hall, that can really put staff in an uncomfortable position where it's on them to be saying no to somebody and worrying if there's going to be implications to this. And I really think that one way to make sure staff is not in that position is to take away their discretion and make it so that they don't have the option of saying, okay, I'll let this one thing get in. The board simply makes a rule that this is the timeline, and, there's really nothing that staff can do.
yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. I mean, we've discussed this a lot of times over the years, and some things we've just continued out, right? And if it's a minor thing, I mean, like for example, if Mr. Cox shows us pictures, we're gonna say we're not gonna see the pictures tonight? I mean, I was up there, I didn't have to see the pictures, I know what it looks like. I was there last night at 8 o'clock, but, something like that, I don't think it changes the whole thing. But if they come in with a new drainage calculation plan, they come in with a new traffic pattern and substantive that staff really has to look at, if they want to show you pictures of the backyard, I think something you gotta give some leeway, but that's my, but the major thing, that's my concern, but we can discuss that as we go, but. sure.
Okay. Great, yeah, we can have that discussion. I would very much appreciate to hear what planning staff itself has to say on this. I think we'd benefit from their point of view very much.
Yeah, I mean, usually I touch base with planning staff the day of the meeting, like Joe and I did today, and I always did it with Aaron. I mean, if there's a problem on anything that they feel that they got at the last minute, I said, we'll address it as soon as the meeting starts. And I think that's a lot longer ways to go for communication with the board as well as with staff. And as Joe knows, I usually have a lot of communication with staff prior to meetings, all leading up to it. I mean, Aaron and I used to call each other all the time. I mean, and if I'll say, did you just get this today? He said, yeah. I said, we'll address it tonight, And that way, I don't put him in the middle of it all. But I'll just say, did staff have a chance to look at this? He says, no. First question I'll ask,
And
Well, sometimes I'll say, even like I said to Joe today, when I didn't see the fire thing for Duville, he says, no, but I can tell you that we had communication with it.
Yep.
They were on board, they were at our meeting, they expressed interest. I said, that should satisfy that requirement, And then they alliterated to it, and then that's why I asked Joe for the record, just the fact the fire department was fine. And, the gentleman mentioned how they made it wider, and they even have it in their comments, so even in the comment period, we had the fire thing. Instead of a letter from them, this is the response from fire, and this is how they handled it. So, I mean, but I mean, like sometimes minor things, I think some things you let come in, big things you don't, but, and then we can always make a motion to the fact that, we should continue it. That's up, that's what we're here to do. I mean,
Yeah.
someone says, the new plans, they haven't been seen, I request we continue it, But that doesn't prevent any one of us from doing that,
No.
if we feel it's inadequate. So,
what happened tonight with or over the last 2 days with that engineer in a 24-hour turnaround coming up with a design change and I don't think we're going to get the very best design if there is a reason for the applicants to do that to their engineers.
Well, I mean, if they come in with a design, I mean, we have two choices. We either vote it up or we vote it down. We can't tell them how to change the design. That's out of our purview. I can't say to them, you change that lot. We either vote yes or no.
Yeah, I'm referring to the applicant got some comments and, a day before the meeting, a couple days before the meeting, and kind of hurriedly came up with a new design of some scope in order to address that. And I don't think that giving the applicants the option of getting a rushed design so that it can get on to the next meeting, I think that's liable to lead to some thoughtless design.
I mean, yeah, I hear you. I mean, but it's up to what we feel as a board to digest that. I mean, they work through the night to try to address all the comments by staff, and they come in and staff is satisfied with them. I give them credit. They could say, we'll get to them. Some engineer says, yeah, we'll work on that, we'll do it later. These guys burnt the oil and get it done, in my opinion. But, I think on the site plan, it's very hard to turn it down on that. So a lot of times you just, if on some of the stuff, like tonight, when the city engineer hadn't seen that new retaining wall on Wood Street, we made a condition that the city engineer look it over. If there's something that they respond to and we don't think staff had an opportunity to see it, we can do a conditional on it. Site plans are tough. We well know to shoot one down, you need a lot of ammunition, and you have to say on the record and highlight each and every one of those situations. And if our planning staff, or our traffic engineer, or our city engineer disagrees with us on planning board, when we go to court, we lose. There's no doubt about that. It doesn't matter what we think. It matters but if we disagree with the city engineer, we lose. We disagree with the city traffic engineer, we lose. A lot of departments told us that more than once. It doesn't matter what you think. It's what they think. You go to court, the judge looks at it, see you later. I can cite the cases that it's been done to on us, so it's, so we have to consider what they say. So, on site plan, those are tough. When the case law says we have to, really come down. And even when we had the meetings down the hall on those, remember? On that, to shoot down a site plan, you really have to dig in deep to find out what's wrong with it, Sometimes you approve it with conditions that the applicant doesn't want. Then it's not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
But, if you can't shoot it down, well, we can't do that. Well, it's a condition. So it's, instead of a non-condition condition, Jerry, it's a condition that they can't meet. So, so there's something to be said for those too. They're tough, but, because sometimes, like, as we well know, what we'll see next week is, with the cell towers. The CBA is against full bit more than us, but we just have the site plan requirement. They have the special permit on it, and every time they vote it down, the FCC and the courts come back and say, no, you lose. Yeah, and that even came out of that training, and the guy said good luck to us, because that was what the ZBA members said, how do we control the, and those are tough situations, they really are. Because some of our own bylaws tell them to put everything else on the same pole. And then people come in and say, well, why are you putting them on the pole? And they said, well, because we have to, but that's, those are tough situations, some of them. But, so anything further? If not, we can, motion to adjourn. I think we meet 2 weeks from tonight, right? On a Thursday night?
That's correct. It'll be on next Thursday, the 18th. Yep.
Yeah, I just on the agenda. Okay, so we got a motion to adjourn by Rich. All in favor? We have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have adjourned. Good night. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, it's 2 weeks from tonight, I think, right? Yeah, because